and giving the very best we got. Not just for one generation, but for all. Welcome to GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025, Day 3. We're coming off the heels of an extraordinary Day 2, where much was expressed, where we assembled leaders from around the world to gather, to share, at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity-first consideration of standards of accessibility and education, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, care, and compassion. We're leaning in. Are you with us? We've assembled another roster for Day 3 of experts that have assembled with us from around the world. Transmetropolitan, transcontinental. Are you with us? This is our 31st Global Summit. And day 3 doesn't end this youth summit. This is our largest yet. And we have more action-packed days awaiting for next week. But today, this day we're given, today is a special one. Every time that we're afforded the opportunity to be able to assemble in global community with hearts that are able to express at a time where we're talking to machines more than ever, and our machines are talking back to us, the preservation of human expression becomes that much more precious of a commodity. We want our youth to know that there are a symbol of people, assembly, that came together to arrive at the shores at the most innovative time the world has ever known, at the fastest accelerated rate of hyperscale, of artificial intelligence and XR on-chain, and more than 300 emerging technologies within the ecohabitat have arrived. That all of these technologies abide within the ecohabitat, and they're beginning to cross-pollinate and to merge into technological convergence itself. There are new innovations that we have no idea that are being assembled right now, fortified with technologies that we are familiar with in applied sciences. The world is ill prepared for the coming wave of what is to arrive and come. I expressed years ago, what will we do when the technology becomes more advanced than the technologist? That has now come to pass. If even our technologists are having a difficult time agreeing and keeping up with the cadence and the tempo of what's been deployed and perpetrated on the world, what does this mean for our very youth that will inherit what it is that we innovate today, tomorrow? What is our pledge to be able to contribute, to do our level best, to make sure that whatever baton, my goodness, whatever baton that we're handing off to them is one that's fortified in safety and trust? When we arrived into this world, there was a path given and ingrained into the forest. And we got on this path, and we stayed on this path so far, so deep within this forest that was given. And we got so deep beneath the cedar trees and evergreens, beyond the branches and the brambles, if you will, to where we went off path and we began to create path just as the ones that came before us. And may we be minded by assembly at times such as this, that the most important thing when we're building path and constructing in this great vast forest, that we simply remember to leave the lights on for the ones who are to arrive. The lights aren't external to us. The hope is that the light is within, the beacon of your heart. We're happy to see so many of you with us that have come to gather with us at GatherVerse.live once again. GatherVerse is strong. Without community, we have none of this. Without grace, we have none of this. We're thankful. We ask that you tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a stranger, tell a colleague. Share this. If you don't, no one will. Not just a broadcast, we're sharing all over the place, and so are you. But share the expressions that you've heard thus far this week and that you'll hear today. We have an incredible roundtable to assemble with us. They've arrived and they're waiting in studio. But first, we'll hear a few words from our friends at Digital Wellness Institute, one of our GatherVerse sponsors. We're grateful for any and all sponsorships that we can get. We value our partnerships with GatherVerse. May our gather be well.
Nina Hersher, and I'm delighted to invite you to the Digital Wellness Day Summit on May 2nd, 2025. Annual Digital Wellness Day has reached over 17 million people in 64 countries to date, and last year the US Surgeon General even chimed into the conversation on Twitter. Each year, this global movement grows and grows, and we're delighted to have partnered with GatherVerse as our broadcast sponsor this year to help reach new and different people. Digital Wellness Day is about being healthy tech, not anti-tech. It's about using technology to fuel us instead of fatigue us, and make sure that we're leveraging it for its highest and most connective good. This summit will feature a panel on workplace wellness, on youth mental health, and on AI and productivity as it relates to digital flourishing. We really hope that you can tune in and join us or post on Digital Wellness Day about what tech-life balance means to you. You can register for the summit at digitalwellnessday.com under the Participate tab. We hope to see you there.
Hello, greetings, and welcome to Day 3 GatherVerse Youth Summit. And we're kicking off with this powerful discussion roundtable panel on From Experience to Inheritance, our pledge to future generations. Our dear panelists, I kindly ask you to mute your mics. Thank you. And I also request you to introduce yourselves. And I ask you to be very quick and brief. So I will start with you, Paola. Since you're a little bit far from me, I want to bring you close by telling us who you are. Then we'll pass it on and add it to Aziza. Paola, the mic is yours.
Is Paula Bowens. I'm with Disruptor DAO, and we're women-led organizations that's committed to disrupting the wealth gap. Our mission is to accelerate wealth, building opportunities for our communities by strengthening the mindset, advancing the knowledge, and the knowledge and the wealth. Excuse me.
Wow, you're welcome. We're happy to see you here. Lawrence, over to you.
My name is Lawrence Harris. I'm a youth empowerment speaker, and I specialize in helping teens and young adults overcome limiting beliefs and build self-love.
Amazing. That was very brief. We like it. Brian, please tell us who you are.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Brian, and I'm a transformational speaker, life coach, and also a youth pastor. In summary, my whole aspect is helping young people manifest their greatness within them. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have a youth pastor here. We love spirituality. Juliet, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am the founder and the CEO of Ultimate Tech. And what we do is we specialize in IT, technology, AI, and anything about technology. Thank you so much.
We're happy to have you. Last but not least, Aziza, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Such a pleasure to be here and join you all for the GatherVerse Youth Summit. My name is Aziza Taylor. I'm founder of On Your Narrative 54, where we focus on building the next generation of storytellers and harnessing the power of storytelling as a catalyst for youth empowerment, leadership, and lasting social change. Happy to be here.
Wow, we welcome you. And I am Lynn Getao, Communications Director for GatherVerse. We're very happy that you have decided to spend your precious time with us. Our dear audience, I kindly request you feel free to engage with these discussions. And as for you panelists, can we begin? Shall we begin? All right, that's a good signal. Well, I will begin with you, Juliet. I see the spark in you, and I want to hear your thoughts first. What are the most important life lessons we can teach today's youth that they should not miss, and why? Tell us why, and anyone can jump in on this as well. Juliet.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn. I think there is a lot for us to teach today's youth, but mostly I think empathy is missing. And I really think that since after the COVID, the dynamic of every platform, social media, real life, everything kind of changed. We used to have face-to-face conversation before, but now everybody's just click to Zoom, live stream, everything now is kind of virtual. And that, in my opinion, I think is taking away empathy from us. I think one of the most lessons that we can teach today's youth is to show empathy. Everybody is so hungry for success. But before we get there, let's show some humanity. And that's one of the things I love about what GatherVerse is doing today, is gathering people to share experiences. So let's show some empathy, let's build resilience, and let's model this character to today's youth. Why they are cleaving to social media, AI is everywhere, everybody wants to get hold of AI. Let's teach them humanity, let's teach them resilience, let's teach
Mhm.
empathy. Absolutely.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Empathy, resilience. I see, Aziza, you're very curious to jump in on this. Do you have an opinion to share?
Absolutely. So I'm applauding and seconding everything that Juliet just mentioned. And I would also basically emphasize and really add that one of the greatest lessons that we can pass on to young people is to own their narratives. So many of our youth, especially those of African descent, are growing up in systems and realities where we don't really see us, being represented across mainstream media, across global media. And if you don't, as a young person, if I don't, as a quote unquote older person, if I don't own my narrative, write my story, capture my story, someone else will do it. And they might do it, and there might be misinformation, there might be things left out. And along that same vein, of owning your narrative, a part of your narrative is your heritage, your culture, your history. So teaching young people to embrace their culture, their history, and all of that within their narratives is so important, because once you know your history and your culture is very empowering. And reminding young people to stand, that they are standing on the shoulders of ancestors who have overcome immense challenges, but here we are today because of them. So sharing their stories, and owning the cultural identities and various identities of resilience, from civil
Mhm.
rights to adversities and overcoming anti-colonial movements,
Mhm.
gives them pride and a lot of context. So I would say to own your narrative as well as embrace your culture, history, and your heritage.
Yes, absolutely. You're very right. And just to add an African proverb to that, that there's a saying that if a lion doesn't tell its stories, the hunter, the hunter will take credit for the lion's hunt. So tell your own stories. And I'm coming to you, Paul, on this, as well as Brian. How can the older generation translate their experiences into tools for the next generation to build with? Paula.
Well, I just want to add on the previous question is just the one word is stay curious and balance out life, but stay curious.
Yes.
So as the older generation, I'm a generation X. And so technology kind of started with us in my generation. We went from World Wide Web, which I can remember learning like, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. Excel, Word, and Microsoft Word, and from the telephone book into the digital age. And so I would just say that with today's world and how the experiences, we need to tell the stories on how technology was introduced to us, and then how we applied it to the next generation. And in my generation, I believe we kind of built on that, and we've been going full steam ahead. So it's just a matter of passing those stories along. Of back in the day, Yellow Pages. How many people know about Yellow Pages that are now digital? And now there's on the phone. When we were coming along, we had to memorize the phone numbers. Now you don't even know your own brother or sister's phone numbers, because it's all there for you. So understanding the past and then what's currently happened, and telling those stories as they go along to look at the future and build upon the future. So we're building a future here where we want you to exceed, to be better than we are than the next generation, and leave it better to the next generation.
Yes, Paula. And in the state of just being curious, I want to follow up on what you said. When it comes to passing stories, there's a generation that believes that the stories of the old don't make sense or they're not applicable in this world. What kind of stories do we tell to the future generations which are relevant and which they should take with so much humility, if you may?
Well, I would say, stories that are told to your parents, in terms of your experience. So you embrace what is given to you, especially in the technology world. So I'll take the telephone book because I think that's people don't know what the telephone book, or when I look at YouTube, these telephones, right? How the telephone book and how the telephone evolved. And, our ancestors before said, oh, we didn't even have telephones and we had to walk to the neighbor's house. Then our generation says we had telephone books and now we're transitioning into the mobile. And then in the mobile, now it's going to be something else in the future where we're probably going to be using the hand. I'm a big sci-fi person. And so we utilizing some of the sci-fi TV movies, this tells us what's going to come in the future. And so that you build on those stories of what has happened in the past where there was not telephone, there was no telephone, the Pony Express. Then it was knocking on the neighbors, and now it's mobile, and now whatever the future may hold. And those are kind of stories we need to generate to the youth to let them understand where we've come from and where we're going.
That's a very interesting perspective, and I want to drag the thread to you, Brian. What do you have to add on this?
Okay, so there's one of my favorite phrases that we need the wisdom of the older generation, we need the energy of the youth, and we need the creativity of the children to combine all those things to be able to have a holistic, wonderful life. So in regards to what the older generation can give to the youth, I think we still under the same sun, under the same moon, under the same clouds. Obviously, technology has brought about many changes, but the same pressures to pay the bills, to make it in life, the same pressures to settle down, get a car, and all these things are still the same. Obviously, in regards to technology, differently though, but the crisis that we face, the same identity crisis that the older generation had, is now only it's now only now at a larger scale because of technology. So the biggest thing that I would really appreciate the older generation to teach the youth is to be authentically yourself and to be able to open up, because now, like I think, was it Aziz, I would say that we are well connected, but everybody's on social media. People are not opening up. So the stories we can share is our success, our failures, and design these into frameworks that we can be able to make better decisions as young people and be able to reach out and learn from, because the very same crisis that
Yes.
20 years ago people faced is the same thing, only now it's on a cell phone or something like that. But yeah, I think just to be open, to be able to open converse, which is what I love about GatherVerse as well.
Yes, I totally agree with that. With opening up, we're more connected in terms of devices, but our hearts connected, and that is what I get when I just hear from you, Brian, and it makes a lot of sense. Let's just shift a little bit more. And go to a higher notch. And I'm coming to you, Lawrence. Are we leaving the next generation better prepared or more dependent on technology? I'm throwing this to you, and anyone can jump in as well.
I believe that we're leaving them a lot more dependent on technology, because when you consider just going to a restaurant and you look around, there's babies on tablets rather than interacting with the parents. So from there, it starts to have bigger impacts on a child's social skills and social development. When COVID happened and everyone was in their house for 2 years straight and they didn't go outside and they didn't talk to anyone, a lot of people now have trouble getting groceries because they're not used to interacting. So with all of the advancements of technology, there's a lot of great things with that. But there also is the pressure of, I don't need to go and make friends in the real world because I have the internet. I don't need to speak to the person at the grocery store because I have Uber Eats. And it's important that we bring people back together face to face in a regular, natural environment. Because if we don't, people will just be buried in their screens, not speaking to each other. And
Mm-hmm.
with children, this is especially important because those formative years when they're a baby and then they're transitioning into school and then high school, with how much technology has made things easy, it makes it hard for them to socialize with each other. So we
Yeah.
need to push face-to-face socializing.
Yes, definitely. And there was a statistic that was shared. It was very visual, and it was just sharing how the brain reacts when we interact in the virtual world and how the brain reacts in the social world. And the reaction is just different, and the brain can just tell. And I really agree with what you have said. And Richard, you're welcome. Maybe you can introduce yourself and perhaps just share your thoughts on this particular question.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Joined on my phone before, so I think that was why there was a network glitch. Okay, so my name is Richard Ogundele, and I'm the director of My Venture Capital. So basically, what we do is to provide pre-seed fundings for students who are in uni who have ideas in technology that can change the world. So we help them to turn these ideas into products where people can now get to invest more in it. So, as to the question, if we're leaving the next generation better prepared or more dependent, I really feel like we're actually doing both because uh, we are not providing enough information when it comes to ethical use of technology to these young ones. This is a generation whereby you could see a 2 years old kid already has a phone, is on the phone all day. There is no regulation. We are not informed of how too much of this, using technology can actually affect kids' cognitive thinking. So, one thing we really need to put in place now is to understand how we can use this ethically. Too much of technology can cause more harm in as much as it can also provide, make life better for us. But we need to ensure that it's being used in the ethical way, in a way
Mhm.
that is healthy enough for
Yes.
everyone and this younger generation.
You know, I echo that strongly because someone yesterday expressed that no child should touch a phone below the age of 6. And I see the importance of that when I hear you expressing. Anyone who wants also to jump on this, because I feel like it's very heavy. I don't want to just close off. And I see you, Aziza, nodding to it. Perhaps you have something to say. Please say it.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things too that is important to uplift and remember, when we're looking at the next generation and if we are leaving them better prepared when it comes to technology, is the state of youth mental health. So prioritizing youth mental health and their well-being, because when we're looking at the young people, they're dealing with a lot. They're dealing with a lot, and technology is helpful in certain instances, but if you are not aware and don't have enough media literacy, you don't have those skill sets that Lawrence was mentioning, the interpersonal skill sets that we as human beings have when we interact with one another. It can lead us down an unhealthy road when it comes to their mental health. And I think about the 1 in 5 young people in the U.S. who are dealing with mental health disorders, on a daily basis and minute by minute. So really stepping in,
Mhm.
as the older generation, to be in that space to help guide young people using technology regarding literacy, media
Yeah.
literacy, regarding helping them understand how to fact check and double check, sources, because we have deep fakes, we have, all these
Yes.
different things that are being thrown at them. So being
Yes.
that additional source of support, I think, is very important. And then as the older generation, continuing to advance our knowledge and understanding of
Mhm.
technology so that we can, be that barrier of support and foundation for the young people, I think is something to uplift and amplify.
Yes. very thought-provoking, something to take away with. Juliet, I'm coming to you. Actually, you unmuted. Before you just express, I'm also bringing this to you. What values must we embed into emerging technologies we develop today to serve future generations humanly? The mic is yours, Juliet.
I think digital privacy is very important. A lot of people take privacy for granted, and having worked in technology industry, federal government, I think like this generation is not taking privacy serious. So, for example, we see a generation that, like I think it's Richard that shared, every child now has iPhone, and they are not even using this lower version of iPhone. I'm talking about iOS, the highest version of it, which means they could actually perform a lot of activities on this phone. So
Yes.
digital privacy is very, very important, whereby we understand human dignity. We understand how to respect people's data. And today, what is happening on social media, even in real life, is if you see somebody struggling, people rather take out their phone to video and post it without even permission, before even helping the person, before even performing simple CPR. That's the
That's
world
right.
we are now. So
Yes.
when you share this information, do you know how many data you have already linked that belongs to somebody else? So one of
Yes.
the things we have to really develop in today's generation, the youth, is digital privacy. Before you share it, think about it, because once you share, you no longer have access to that data. You can no longer control the data. So once it leave your hand, the data lands to
Mhm.
maybe thousands of people. You can no longer
Yes.
control what you share. So before you let it out of your phone, your hand, before you share that information, think
Mhm.
about digital privacy. How are you protecting humanity? How are you respecting people's privacy? How are you respecting people without, leaking their confidential
Data.
information online?
Yes, I totally agree with that. Think critically, but I just have a follow up to that, and just be brief on it. There is a generation that just wants to get popular, and sometimes the way to get popular is sharing the latest news, and that latest news involves people, and it's either something tragic, and they don't want to help, they want to rush into popularity. How do we control this urge for popularity, likes, and followers? And anyone can chime in on that, but Juliet, I want to hear from you, and Lawrence as well. Yeah, Juliet.
Thank you, Lynn. I think this generation literally, and this goes to everybody, literally have to go back to the mentorship kind of life. Before, when I remember when I was in school and I was doing my undergrad, like I was so happy. I want to get a mentor, somebody that I look up to, somebody that will influence me positively. But what are we seeing today? People rather have people as popularity more than value. So quantity over quality. That's what we're saying.
Mm.
So I'm really encouraging the youth of today to cleave
Yes.
to mentorship. Look up to somebody who is modeling a life that you want their look up to have, maybe. And this has nothing to do with um financial literacy, because I know like so many people are now into that as well, which is
Yes.
amazing. But I'm thinking about moral. So
Mhm.
mentorship have to be embedded in the youth today.
Yes.
And I want the youth listening to us today, look out to somebody in the community. And
Mhm.
also social technology, innovation has made things very easier. If you
Yeah.
are in school, look at to reach out to somebody to mentor you, and somebody that will hold you accountable, because I see that lack of accountability is really, really in the youth today. So we have to.
Juliet, I'm coming to that accountability. I'm gonna fire that on you, but hold that thought for now. Let me listen to Lawrence, but I'm coming to you. Lawrence, what do you have to say on this generation that likes popularity over values?
Yeah,
Briefly.
I would have to say that, especially in the people I've spoken to and helped, is that the desire for popularity and the number of likes and followers, it can get very unhealthy very fast, because the fastest way to get a lot of likes is to do something terrible. It's very backwards, but people have a negativity bias. If you were to hear that someone gave $1 million to a homeless person, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty darn cool. Good job to them. But if somebody said, hey, look at this video of someone getting hit by a bus, you'll jump to the phone. And because of that, we realized that if I want to be popular, I have to do something outrageous. I have to do something very big. And that leads people down to doing immoral things.
That's
It
right.
leads to them like giving up their morals and principles in the name of, I have 50,000 followers. But at
Yes.
the end of the day, they don't have themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the best ways we can combat this
Yeah.
is both, like Juliet said, through the mentorship aspect of having someone steer you on the right path,
Yes.
but also reminding them that what's the long-term implication of what you're about to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this moment, yes,
Yes.
you'll get a lot of likes and followers. But down the line, if you keep harming people and you keep talking down on others,
Yes.
we can look throughout the news, throughout history, and we can see instances of young people who ultimately end up losing their life
That's
because
right.
they were showing a ton of money on social media, and now you just put a target on your back.
That's right.
Or we can look at
That's
people
right.
who make music about harming others, and
Yeah.
even though in the song they're lying about this, there are people who think you're serious.
That's right.
So you put another target on your back, and you're at school, and
Yeah.
I saw you posted $10,000 on your Instagram. So now you just got robbed at school because you
Yeah.
put a target on your back. So it
That's right,
really comes
Lawrence.
down to just
We can go a
mentorship.
distance with that.
Yeah.
We can go. There's so many examples I can mention on that, and I'm just so worried. There's so many people who have lost their lives, and this is young people who have lost their lives because of such examples that you've given. And this doesn't only happen in one continent. I think it's global. I can give a ton of examples, but we don't have that much time. And I'm coming to you, Paula. This is a very strong discussion, and I'm bringing you on this. What social, environmental, or technological debts are we leaving to the younger generation, and how can we address them today? And Brian, I also want to hear your thoughts on this. But as for now, Paula, the mic is yours. Please unmute. Can unmute.
Yeah, there we go. It leads into what we're talking about in the last question on the social side. A lot of the social media content creators have passed away because they don't understand how to handle success. And
Yeah.
is that a failure, or whose fault is that in terms of, is it on the technology side, or is it related to their families, or is it related to our society in terms of we're rewarding them with doing crazy things with money? So how do we balance that and let them know that it's great to use the technology, it's great to create, but also understand the human side of the aspect. So we're not in that aspect, we're leaving behind, or we're not helping the newer generation in terms of dealing with the social side of it. When you talk about the climate, the environment side is about the climate, in terms of what's going on in our world today, and how in certain areas climate is a bigger issue versus it's not. Where is the world going to be in the next 5 to 10, 20 years, and how are they going to address that? When you're talking about decarbonization, when you're talking about the going to the space, if we're going to be here on Earth or we're going to be in space, where that's going to be. So we're leaving a lot, where we're creating a lot, but we're also leaving a lot on the table for the next generation to handle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of that is understanding the human sided aspect of the technology. Technology is wonderful. We
Yes.
always need human beings for technology, but
Yeah.
we don't teach the kids today that technology is used to help productivity, to help with easier life, but balance it out with understanding the feelings, your soft skill sets, and understanding
Yes.
how to apply that.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Brian, do you want to add something to that?
Oh, yes. So I think in regards to the debt, we are getting to a point where we are actually being used by technology, not the other way, where we should be the ones making use of technology. When I think about the generation nowadays, they wake up every day, they are indoors, they are on a phone, on a laptop, they are playing games. The only things they are using are basically the fingers, the feet. It's only walk to the kitchen or walk to the bathroom. So already it's a big crisis that physically they're not doing anything, they're not gathering in groups, they're not using their intellectual minds, creativity, critical thinking. Like someone said that we don't actually remember our numbers like we used to. You could memorize so many things, but now we so reliant on technology, of which there's nothing wrong with it, but we actually need to be able to use our own creativity now. Instead of us actually using our minds to create something beautiful, wonderful, we just put it on ChatGTP. Please do this, do this for me. But we are taking away the power that we have and giving it to technology and losing ourselves in the process. So for the younger generation, it's not just on a social platform, losing ourselves where we are very connected but disconnected, where even when we talk of environment, we're cutting down the trees, we need more computers, phones, we're destroying and therefore leading to climate change as well. In regards to the physical aspect of a human being. A human being was created to be physically, mentally, intellectually, socially, spiritual, all these different aspects. But because of technology, maybe we're only focusing on one aspect of it, of which it has negative impact in the future.
Brian, you said something very thought-provoking, and I want to engage our audience who are watching all over the world. Is technology using us, or are we using it? So that is food for thought. You let me know on the chat box. But I want to come to you, Aziza. What ways can mentorship adapt to better serve the needs of a generation that prioritizes digital interaction? And I also want to hear from you, Richard, as well. But Aziza, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Lynn. I wanted to touch really quickly on the previous question regarding the debts. Just really quickly, I think we might be remiss if we didn't touch on the technological debt when it comes to the digital divide and some youth having access to technology and some youth not having access to technology, and what that could do and what that could be doing regarding their promise, regarding opportunity, because we know that they are brilliant. Youth are brilliant all over the world, but if they do not have, inclusivity when it comes to digital accessibility, then we might be stifling, the future, disruptors in a good way, So it's really important that we bring that up, as well as the inequities that young people are facing. So when we look at the social debt, the inequities that young people are facing that come from historically marginalized and minoritized communities is something that we must continue to amplify and provide spaces for those voices to be seen and heard and understood. So I just wanted to mention that on the previous question, but in regards to the question regarding in what ways can mentorship adapt to better serve the needs of a generation that prioritizes digital interactions, I think it's important that we meet young people where they are, because once you start to speak with them, you start to realize, like, young people understand the issues. They are in tune with what's happening in their communities, but they don't always have the resources, to amplify or to push for positive change in the ways that they feel, is the best solution. So what we can do, as the previous generation, I'm from the millennial bunch, but what we can do, and what I found is using my experiences in communications, journalism, and production, and modifying those and meeting youth where they are by digitizing that. So when I teach young people how to tell their own stories, we look at ways to do that digitally. How can you do that through podcasting? How can you do that through creating your own documentary film piece? How can you do that through the written word? Because writing is still important. That is something that I also, teach young people, even though we're in a digital age. There's something about just putting a pen or pencil to paper that also activates the brain in a way that technology cannot, do so. So I think that we
I
can,
agree. I
yes,
agree, Rex.
I think that we
And
can
yeah, what
do
I'm
that.
getting from you
Mhm.
is, yes, what I'm getting from you, Aziza, is the forms of even getting to where they are. We just do it
Mm.
digitally. And
Absolutely.
Christopher, when Christopher was starting this, or yesterday, he was saying, let's meet the youth at where they are. And you just added a layer to that when you said we meet them digitally, because that is where they are. That is a powerful strategy. And Richard, tell us your thoughts. What do you think on this?
Oh, okay. So, 2 days ago, I was speaking to my niece. I've been teaching my niece about AI. She's just like 9. I have a background in artificial intelligence. So, and
Wow.
one of the things I really emphasized on is data sharing. You don't just share everything online. I'm in the Gen Z generation here, and one thing I've really noticed about this young generation is they love to share everything online. And all this ChatGPT and Gemini and all these AI assistants that we have there, they just train on random datas online. It is bad for ChatGPT to already have your address because you mistakenly shared your house address online. Yeah, I was still saying it yesterday that for those people who impute young people now, yes, we need to meet them where they are. A lot of
Yes.
them use AI to apply for jobs now. And I was saying, why would you want to apply for a job with your CV and you still have your full house address and your contacts there? Like that is oversharing to the internet. So mentoring involves helping them to understand that there are boundaries to this thing. You can use it in ways that is going to protect you. We need to protect ourselves first. We need to also
Yeah.
protect these guys first. Have you guys ever wondered why people like Mark Zuckerberg always blur their children's face? Like it's something to think about. Why would Mark Zuckerberg is the founder of Facebook?
Yeah.
Every of his child's picture, I noticed he blurs them because he
Mm.
understands something that we
Yeah.
don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because he's trying to build a good future for that child, whereby the
Yeah.
child will be able to control his or her own privacy. And this is
Yes.
the same thing we need to encourage these people to know about as well. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
has limits, like there are boundaries to everything. And
Yes. The
understanding
boundaries.
this, yeah,
Yes.
understanding this is really what makes us healthy. A lot of
Yes.
young people are committing suicide just because of social media pressure online. They see people living fake life on TikTok, a 9 years
Mm-hmm.
old buying Rolls Royce, or
Yes.
probably,
I
things that
totally
are not true,
agree with that.
and they just
Richard,
get depressed. Yeah.
Richard, that's right. We can go a distance with that as well. We have so much to
Mm,
cover. I believe this is one of the most interesting roundtables to talk with. I think we should have a part two on that and talking to Christopher.
mm,
Think of
mm,
a part two of this. But because of time, I just want to also throw this to you, Juliet, briefly,
mm.
because our time is running as quick as it gets. What mistakes have previous generations made that youth must actively unlearn? And I also want to hear from you, Brian, on this. What are those mistakes that they need to unlearn?
I think one of them is they have to unlearn ignoring their mental health. Mental health is so important, and today's youth feels that they are robot. And I totally understand the energy that the youth have, and we have, and everything. But you have to understand that everything you do, there is something that communicate with the brain that transform this energy. So unlearn just being going and take a minute and pause and look into your mental health. Don't let it get to the point whereby you now have to be admitted to the hospital before you understand that you have to turn off the phone, you have to turn off the laptop, you have to,
Password.
password. And this also, I throw this to parent. You have to know what your children are doing online. Don't ever trust them that they are matured enough to handle
Yes.
everything. They are not.
Powerful. That's right.
Regardless of how old they are, know what they are doing. If you are not technically there, there are several apps you can download to track their digital footprint. Download this app, see what they do, and
Yes.
know the history, the browsing
Yeah.
history, where they go to, delete them, block them, and wipe them off.
That's
Protect
right.
the youth, protect the children, teach them the power of collaboration. And this thing start in the family. If you have two children, teach them
Yeah.
how to teach the older one how to collaborate with the younger one. Teach the
Yeah.
children collaboration, the power of collaboration. And most importantly, know what your child is doing online. You have the power to stop them. You have the power to instruct them. You have the power to guide them. Don't let the word, don't let AI teach them
Yes.
what they should not be learned. So teach them and track what they are doing. And there are
Yeah.
several, like I said, several apps out there to
Yeah.
help you and block what needs to be blocked and encourage what needs to be encouraged.
Definitely powerful, Juliet. Sorry, yeah, Juliet. But when I think about the power of responsibility, the parents, I think I bring more responsibility to the parents because these are kids. They don't know what they're doing. Bring accountability to them. Protect them. It's not the role of any government or anyone outside your house. It starts with the family. Brian, do you want to add something to that briefly?
Oh, yes. I like that you use the words responsibility and accountability. I always, when we speak about response, how you respond to things that are thrown to you online, and your ability to choose either going this direction or going a different direction, and account, being able to take a look and say, okay, who am I following? Where are they coming from? What's the intention behind all that they share and post? So some of the mistakes that we learned this generation that we need to teach the other ones is not everyone who's in authority is an authority, and in your life you need to be able
Yes.
to say, what are they teaching me? What's the intention? Why should I follow them? What am I learning from them? And then the other thing is that busyness does not equate that you have done anything productive. You can
That's right.
spend the whole day online and have done nothing at all, but feel like you did so many things. And also that one of the things online there's no real connection because there's less of being vulnerable or opening up, of which real connection and real healing comes
Yes.
when people open up and are vulnerable. So those are some of the things that we can actually do better to help this next generation, that it's okay to be vulnerable, to show your mistakes, your failures, and to
Yeah.
ask for help when you need it, than to pretend everything's beautiful and
Yeah.
perfect when it really is not. Yeah.
Yeah, vulnerability is strength. I totally agree with that. Paula, I want to bring this to you with this little time that we have left. What blind spots do we have today that could become tomorrow's biggest ethical crisis? And Lawrence, I also want to hear your thoughts on this.
I think we kind of went over it a little bit. Some of the blind spots is the data privacy. Is that our kids are they go out and they just give our information, sign up for different apps, and just put their information out there. And one of the I was reading one of the examples is we have an app now for women to monitor our menstrual cycles, and that data should be private to us, but we put it out there, and everybody in the world can get it and see it. So we really need to explain to the youth that not everything needs to go, as we talked about before, go online. And so it comes down to giving the youth the common sense. They know the technology, but we really need to embed them with the common sense or the soft skills, because that's what's lacking right now in today's world as we move forward. So we really need to, if we don't teach them this, then it's really going to be a problem in the future where data is just going to be out there and they're just giving everything away to where everybody knows what's going on with them. And that some things need to be stayed private.
Yes, absolutely. Lawrence, add a layer to this.
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest blind spots we have is that we often aren't reminding young people enough about the importance of self-love, because you can go online and, like Richard mentioned, you can see the 9-year-old with the Rolls Royce, you can see the 21-year-old multi-millionaire, and you start subconsciously comparing yourself to them and thinking, man, I don't have nothing going on like that. And you start to downplay yourself, but it leads you to forgetting the value of who you are as a person is deeper than what you have in your wallet. And on the note of comparing yourself monetary wise, in order to be in the top 10% of earners worldwide, so comparing every single person worldwide, top 10% is 30,000 a year. That puts you in the top 10% worldwide. 50,000 puts you in the top 1% worldwide. But we keep ourselves in these little echo chambers and start thinking, we compare ourselves way too highly and forget that we matter too. And then with things such as AI, we start to compare ourselves and think, this is so much smarter than me. I can never be that smart. I can never make a like that.
That's right.
We over rely on the technology rather than realizing that we're the ones who built it. So we know how to improve ourselves, but we just forget about taking care of ourselves.
Definitely. Lawrence, I just want to add a layer to that when it comes to comparison. I read somewhere comparison is the killer of progress, if I can rephrase it on my way. And
Yeah.
Aziz, we just have 1 minute left, and I just want you to conclude with this. How can today's youth balance risk taking, responsibility in creating their future? Briefly, tell us what you think.
Yes, I'll try to do it briefly. One thing that I tell young people all the time is to take bold risks, but make them informed and intentional. So do the research, build in their communities, and then take the jump. Don't just jump with your eyes covered. You can you can still disrupt, but there's still a disciplinary, kind of mindset to take when it comes to that. And when you're taking risks, the truth is you do that, by speaking truth to power, by living in, your truth, and also understanding that what is my why? What is my purpose in doing this? And, that's very important to ground young people, because the other part of that too, you don't want to take a risk that's rooted in pressure, but you want to take one that's rooted, in boldness and kind of being able to think through things and going back to centering your why. So youth, they really are preparing, to inherit this world. And so they never need to feel stifled and never need to feel afraid and never need to feel that what they have within them is of no value right now. It's valuable right now. So take the risk, but do so with intention and a centering around what your why is and what the outcome that you hope and you seek from this.
Yes, that is a very powerful summary, Aziza. When it comes to purpose, intention, I couldn't agree more. And that's the best way to summarize. I know we had a lot to express, and this is my request for you, Christopher. Consider round 2. And when we get another one like this, we're looking forward to have you back, our dear panelists. We love your expression and we value you. Thank you so much. This was a great time spending time with you. And our Gather was well. Over to you, GatherVerse team. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carmen Milagro, the founder and the chair for the Divina World Foundation, and it's an honor to be a part of this incredible global youth gather. Thank you to Christopher Lafayette and the entire GatherVerse team for inviting me to your 2025 Youth Summit. Today, I'm excited to share a sneak peek into the future of global studies. And we have a mission to connect young people from around the world to legacy artists, storytellers, and musicians through the power of music, art, and virtual reality. And at the heart of this mission is our Indigenous and World Music Hall of Fame project, a global multicultural preservation plan powered by AI in a metaverse campus. In 2024 at FestPac in Hawaii, 28 tribal elders, island nations, and government leaders came together, and they expressed three major concerns, such as the loss of their island nations due to rising sea levels, the concern over where will their people relocate once they're forced to leave their homes and their islands, and the urgent need for alternative cultural preservation plans. Their concerns became my concerns, because if we don't act now, centuries of music, stories, and traditions will be lost forever. So what could we do to help? I believe that knowing who you are and where your core beliefs and values come from gives you the strength and the courage to speak out and stand up for something you believe in. At Divina World Foundation, we say when you honor your ancestors, you honor yourself. When you celebrate your roots, you discover who you are. So DWF has teamed up with Guillermo Diaz Jr., the CEO at Conectado, a high-tech company leading the educational community into the future. And together with Conectado, we're creating our Hall of Fame project within their metaverse campus and with AI-driven interactive experiences. We're helping to democratize education, and you'll make global connections through several major universities, including Stanford and UC Berkeley. You'll also be able to reach out and potentially connect with 5 million students from around the world. You'll discover indigenous and other world music from artists whose voices might otherwise be forgotten. And you'll be able to explore different cultures, traditions, and stories as shared by some elders in their own words and languages without ever having to get on a plane. And as you know, there's a movement out there that's determined to erase other people's histories and contributions. And if we don't preserve our own stories, they will continue to be banned. Music could be silenced. Our voices will be erased and replaced by inaccurate versions of our history. We believe that empathy, appreciation, acceptance, tolerance, and compassion are born from understanding different people as they are and learning about one another's cultures. And we believe this is one way to battle hateful narratives. Divina World Foundation is a movement to empower like-minded and like-hearted people to help build a future where no one is excluded. And now, please enjoy this video as our official invitation to join us, the Indigenous and World Music Hall of Fame. Join us in our world, because it's coming soon. Thank you.
start with possibly setting up context. So, as you know, I think we're living in the most amazing time in human history because we have created these technological as well as scientific tools that is going to augment humanity to possibly meet our true potential. But if we fuck up as in humanity go the wrong direction, because our natural instinct, leads to power, greed, and self-preservation, then AI will truly be our last invention that mankind has ever made, and maybe leading to the end of the human race. We are at the cusp of creating this new species of sort, a self-learning technology stack, which is accelerating faster than we can wrap our heads around. Now, what is this new species? It goes by this term called artificial general intelligence, a computer system that would think and learn just like humans do. It wouldn't just follow patterns it's seen before. It would understand the problem deeply and come up with completely new solution like we do. AGI would learn anything on its own and use the knowledge to solve any problem, even one that's never seen before. Here's the timeline given by the experts, the ones who are actually building us. So what does this mean for the future of humanity or youth, the future of jobs? And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in the next 5 minutes. So as we hurtle into 2025, or century-old institutions like, governance, education, healthcare, religion, and so on and so forth, they all remain stuck in the past, desperately needing transformation. The traditional roadmap to success, like, the good grades, a degree, a stable job, is quickly becoming a path to nowhere. The future of work isn't about certificates. It's about skills and being a lifelong learner. And fortunately, unfortunately, in this new world, your toughest competitor isn't the person sitting next to you, isn't the next human, but it's a machine that never sleeps, never doubts, never stops working, never stops learning, doesn't take a break. So let's just take a pause and let that sink in, because it's time to rethink everything. Just as electricity transformed industries a century ago, these large language models, generative AI, and especially this new thing that we are building, agentic AI, the kind that doesn't just follow orders, but thinks, adapts, and acts, is rewiring work as we know it. We're already seeing it through these generative AI stack, which turns your prompts into images, design, videos, 3D model, and even entire games. These agentic AI codes faster than humans, debugs better than engineers, and automates tasks we once thought sacred. Repetitive jobs are going to go first. Think data entry, assembly lines, customer service scripts. But it doesn't just stop there. Lawyers, doctors, engineers, caregivers, AI is coming for this complex stuff too, because these AI humanoid robots, which still looks like science fiction, is accelerating at the speed of light. And I'm sure in this decade itself, we'll have millions of humanoid robots living amongst us. The IMF estimates 60% of all jobs will be impacted by AI in the next decade. So where does that leave you? Employers today and the entire startup ecosystem, they really don't care about your degrees. What matters is skill and being a lifelong learner. A recent Cisco report found that 92% of tech roles are evolving. Skills like creativity, emotional intelligence, and problem solving are what matters. Meanwhile, I think parents and kids are also waking up to the digital world, that online free education, these massive open online courses, where education is actually free. If what's stopping is possibly the desire and intent. Today we've got these podcasts from the best technologists, scientists, researchers, giving away these awesome knowledge of theirs completely free. Platforms like Coursera and Udemy are democratizing learning. Why spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on a degree when you can master, Python or any kind of coding or anything that you want, design thinking or AI ethics for free or close to it online? So the world is changing. Kids who thrive won't be the ones with the most credentials, but the ones who can pivot, who can juggle 5 skills at once, who can collaborate with humans as well as machines. multitasking won't just be a perk, it'll be survival. And here's something drastic that I think we are completely not opening up to or ready to face. What if these AI are able to scale infinitely? What if they start by taking a few jobs and then eventually there's no jobs left for us? The kids of tomorrow might not be preparing for careers, but for a world where purpose comes from something else entirely. Maybe art, maybe exploration, maybe something we can't even name yet, maybe something to make our world better, maybe something which frees us, because today there's maybe 1,000 odd people who kind of rule the world because we live in a centralized top-down hierarchical world, and these billionaire trillionaires hold almost 90% of the entire economic value. It's a wake-up call. The future of work isn't something, it's here. And it's asking, are you ready to co-live with the machines or be left behind? I'm Eddie Evan, an entrepreneur, podcaster, and metaverse strategist at Shimaru Entertainment. These are my social handles. Happy to connect, happy to collaborate, and find ways to build a more equal and better world. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to day 3 of GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025. I'm Russell. I am your moderator for this roundtable discussion. Please make sure everyone has their microphone muted so that we can allow each individual to speak. And I'm very excited about this roundtable discussion because we're going to be talking about a message to our youth, the future you could build. And by the way, it's great to see you again, William, as well, just FYI. And I know you're going to be moderating later as well, so I'm very excited about that as well, William. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick introduction from each of our panelists, 30 seconds each, just tell people who you are, what you do, etc. And then we'll get straight into the discussion. So without further ado, we'll start with Eternity, then we'll go to Bill, then William, and then Poppy. So Eternity, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Eternity Sledge, a catalyst for transformation, embodying creativity, resilience, and purpose. I operate in my passion as the founder and executive director of Meerkat Impact Foundation, which is a nonprofit for at-risk youth, equipping them with life skills development, mental health advocacy, and pathway discovery. So happy to be here with you all.
Thank you for joining us, Eternity. And Bill, you look very happy there. Please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Bill Sturley. I am a high conflict mediator, communication specialist that teaches adults, youth, how to communicate better to reduce conflict, emotional intelligence skills. I wrote a book on emotional intelligence called Emotional Sobriety over the last couple of years, how to better respond to both internal messages and external messages. Why do people think? Why do people think the way they do? Why do people behave the way they do? And how do we deal with the two voices that are coming to us in two different directions?
Well, thank you for joining us, Bill. And I'd have to read that book for sure. William, please introduce yourself.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm William Jackson. I am here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm the CEO of GatherVerse WP and My Quest to Teach, where we provide virtual educational training in the metaverse and with AI and other tools for youth, teens, and young adults. Thank you.
And great to see you again, William, as always. And last but not least, the one and only Poppy. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Poppy Lydia Silla, all the way from Gaborone, Botswana in Africa. I'm a brand marketing communications expert, and I have a startup called Pathway Media, which basically helps startups with purposeful marketing tactics in different countries such as Nigeria and Ghana and Botswana as well. And I'm excited to be here today and contribute to this very, very important discussion. Thank you. And it's lovely to meet everybody.
Well, thank you for joining us, Poppy. And last but not least, myself, most really, actually. So my name is Russell Bundy. I am the co-founder of Just Verify. Co-founder and chief visionary officer. Make sure I get the title right. And I'm also a partnerships director at GatherVerse as well. So basically, more or less in very simple terms, Just Verify is focused on creating the trust layer for AI. And that's what we're looking to do right now, is building the infrastructure for that and verifying and building the trust with AI and humans, basically. And then on the other side of things, obviously, director of partnerships at GatherVerse. So I handle all the relationships and any sort of partnerships and all that kind of sort of good stuff. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell. Let's get straight into the conversation now, which is, here's the first question. How can youth avoid the trap of innovation without intention and purpose? Very, very interesting question. So, do you know what, William? Because you're so eager to get involved, I'm just going to fire this question at you first, my friend.
Wow, I was just thinking, wow, that is really deep. Can you ask the question again so I can make sure?
Sure. How can youth avoid the trap of innovation without intention and purpose?
Okay, well, I'll start with this. When my wife and I, when we're working workshops with youth teams and young adults, we try to encourage them to understand the power of their voice, but also the power of their tools. So we'll have them, for instance, like raise up their phone and we'll have them repeat what we're saying. It's like, this can be your best friend or your worst enemy, to get them to understand that there are innovative changes and innovative adaptions, but don't get caught up in just because it's new, nice and shiny, that is the tool that you should jump in and use. You first have to learn how to use it, how to be productive with it, the educational value, and how it can influence their future. So when they understand, guiding them into critical thinking, into the tools that they're using to make knowledgeable decisions, not decisions that will ultimately get them in trouble later on.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with that more. Honestly, it's I mean, we'll just take social media as an example. You know, youth jump on that straight away. They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, TikTok. A lot. What was it? The old saying, the TikTok brain, or something like that these days. Right. So you know, I completely 110% agree with everything that you sentimentally said. So let's bring you on, Poppy. What are your thoughts on this, Poppy?
I absolutely agree. I think it's important also to ask the question why. Being intentional and purposeful in terms of everything that they do. So I definitely agree in terms of also just questioning things without just doing them because it's trendy or just because it's popular. I think it's important. Like, authenticity is very, very important. So being intentional and purposeful towards your attitude towards certain things is definitely, I definitely agree with what Bill said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at this from a kind of different lens quickly. Let's look at this from an AI angle, right? I mean, kids are using AI every day these days, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, you know, whatever your favorite model is. And, you know, in a way, you know, unless the youth really kind of understand, you know, what it is that they're using and what's going on, you know, that could potentially, you know, wash their brain, so to speak, right? Because, for example, everyone that I see and hear these days are all saying shaping. I mean, no one was saying shape or shaping before. Now everyone is going shape this, shape that. Another example, fostering. I've never heard anyone say foster before AI. Now, as soon as AI comes out, everyone's like, foster this, foster that. So, Bill, let's bring you onto this because I can see you laughing. You know, what are your thoughts of what I just said there in terms of like the AI side of things and in terms of, you know, how can youth avoid the trap of innovation without like the intention and purpose?
Well, this is, I'm going to take a different tact.
Okay.
Because the front part of the brain that does logic and future thinking has 400,000 neural connections, and the back part of the brain has 4.3 million. It's a 1-to-10 ratio. So if we think on this call that emotion and habit don't win over logic and future thinking. This is why the logarithms work so well. Emotion, trigger, habit, something I know or something I like. Even regarding safety, that's the problem. Override logic and future thinking. It's a 1 to 10 ratio, 1 to 10. Without our language being integrated, observe, feeling, what need, respect, recognition, acknowledgement, fairness, trust, truth. What is the request? That's the thing that helps us change from reaction to response. So we got to watch, because right now the phones and the internet are collapsing our ability, and it's react instead of respond, and that's where choice exists. So we got to change this perception and stretch so we have choice. And because everything is online, I can do a 37-page dissertation on everybody's things just using AI. I can literally generate and know more about you from what you have online right now, LinkedIn, wherever it is, and whatever you have put or chatted about. I can have a dissertation somewhere in the next 30 minutes and know everything about everybody online here. So the stimulus and response we keep getting crushed, and our brain has not caught up to. So we need more emotional intelligence skills and languaging skills to fight the battle, because people say all kinds of crap.
That's true.
And say all kinds of stuff that doesn't meet the need for truth, but you can't tell, because collapse. And instead of respond, think, check in, respond, assess, reevaluate, and then respond again. And so I know I'm opening up a huge can of worms, and I'm hoping to, because all of you can now weigh in on this whole collapsing, because there's nothing like youth's limbic brain is running, because that's what the first thing that runs, and then language builds all the way to 28. So we have this language, it actually fuses around somewhere between 25 and 28. So we got to have better language and teach them languaging skills so they become more resilient to the stimulus. That's my big pitch in emotional intelligence, is build enough language so they can call BS out when it shows up, or says, I just feel doubtful. That doesn't meet my need for truth. I kind of feel skeptical. I can't really trust that response. See how
I want to ask you a quick question. Is this why reflecting is so important, right? Like reflecting on, what you've done, maybe what you've experienced, kind of like going back on. I mean, even if, it's when you're 4 years old and you're 6 years old, maybe they might reflect back on, what I did a couple of years ago when, I went to the theme park and, went there with X. Do you think reflecting could be sort of like a part of that? I know this is kind of a bit of a side question, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts.
It is a bit. So the reflection part is really important if it's verbatim, but we've got to be cautious of hand grenade words and landmine words like abandoned, abused, idiot, narcissist. We got to be careful of those words, because those words blow up our cortisol and adrenaline in our body, and it causes us to shut down. So when we retell the story in an empathetic way, we can get there. But if you retell the story in a tragic way, or just telling the same vocabulary, that's called 8 years of bad therapy. I don't want to retell the story in a negative language. I need to retell the story in an empathetic. So when my father left me the way he did, instead of when my father abandoned me. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
The tone changed immediately.
Yeah.
Because my need for connection wasn't met. My need for support wasn't met. My need for belonging wasn't met with my dad. Now I have the power. But as soon as I say my dad abandoned me, I've given the power away to the past and to my dad. See how weird this gets really quick? Our language really invigorates our physiology, and we got to really be careful of our word choice, because really bad out there as a mediator. It is so bad, just so bad out there.
Well,
I don't have to tell you. You're all smiling at me. It's like really bad out there. So we got to be very, very cautious and protective of our language and pick better words and phrases. Yeah,
absolutely. It's how you say things. So thank you so much, Bill, for sharing that and for going in deep. And it was very insightful for me even. So because I was standing there going, yeah, like, like I felt like I was a kid at school. So I mean, that's fantastic. So now we need to go on to the next question, which is, in the world of endless information, how can the youth sharpen their ability to think critically and independently? So kind of really carrying on from what Bill was saying. So we'll bring in Eternity, and then we'll head over to yourself again, William, after that. Eternity, what are your thoughts?
I think implementing community is really important. I love what Bill said about their toolkit of words, but I think it's more than just the language. It's also the people around you, having people around you who push you out your comfort zone, having people you can talk to about the different questions that they're going to AI with, because they're not just going to AI to ask for help on their papers. They're asking things that people usually Google or that they can usually talk to a parent about. So create a social support system around you that can help walk you through these different things, or if they can't answer your questions, they're supporting you in figuring out how to get your questions answered.
And also thinking about it, right? Also the democratization to access of information, right? Obviously it's progressed. When the internet happened, then we went to Google, and then now we've got AI, right? So AI can just get us all the information within seconds. We haven't even got to search through entire, search logs anymore in Google. Like, we haven't got to go through like 10 different links. And now whatever, AI says, we believe and almost trust instantly, right? Because it says it with such confidence. You're like, oh, well, you must be right. So when it comes to, how can the youth sharpen their ability to think critically and independently, I think there's two parts of this. Number one is how to use AI, right, to get the information to understand, but to also potentially, fact check that if that's a possibility. But number two is also educating them on how to use it, right? For them to understand it is a tool. It is something that they can use, and how you were saying, William, about how it's like good and bad, etc., and how you were saying that with the phone, it kind of, AI is in a way can be used in the same way. So from your point of view, William, in a world of endless information, right, how can the youth sharpen their ability to think critically and independently?
I think one of the things that needs to happen is the youth find a mentor that will guide them on their process of learning. And hopefully their mentor is not someone younger than them or slightly older than them, because they need to have somebody with experience. Like this panel right here would be a great example, because we could give them real world truths and values to using technology, not their friends that will tell them probably, go to this site or go to this AI site and it will do everything for you. When I was teaching in the early introduction of AI that I did in my classroom, I emphasized that AI was a tool to help them, not to do their work, but to help them comprehend, to help them in literacy, to help them in writing, to be a better student, whether in school or out of school. So we have to look at the tools, and as the panelists have said, use the tools effectively, but also instill in them the value of being creative, innovative, and imaginative, because those tools are still valuable wherever you go. And we have to make sure that the educational process is not just limited to schools itself, but also out in the community, going out at libraries or community centers, offering these resources, providing workshops, doing things of that nature. Pre-pandemic, my wife and I, we used to have workshops every weekend for like 2 years at the public library and teach digital skills. So it was an open door policy. Come on in, we'll teach you digital skills, but we'll teach you not as academics in a classroom, but as how to link education and business, or be business owners, or be entrepreneurs. So this is how you would use these skills to use to better yourself, but also to ask those key and important questions, as Eternity and Bill are making comments about. Hey, this is a tool. You have a question, ask it, but digest the answer and apply it to how you could use it.
Do you think that, I mean, I just kind of get a bit of a side question, which is how many like sort of youth have you seen when you were saying about the schoolwork, right? And them using AI for that.
Right.
How many children or youth are you seeing now where they do their like entire essay or the entire exams or everything, just all AI, right? I'm curious just to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Honestly, the majority of them, because they see it as an easy tool to use, so that way they don't have to take the time to really think about what they're doing and put the effort in. Because you have to understand kids are going to find the easiest way to do things. So whether elementary, middle school, or high school, if they can use AI to do their work, they will do it. That's why it's important that they learn about what plagiarism is. They learn about time management. They learn about content management. They learn about comprehension, because they can use these tools out of school in their career aspirations or their jobs. But when it comes down to it, when I was in the classroom, we had a running joke that they were not as smart as AI. They would ask smart questions, but when AI gave them the feedback or the information, they still had to read through it, because AI accumulated information from the internet and other resources, but it did not put it in words related to that student or how that student talks or thinks. So understanding that, okay, you don't sound like AI. AI is not going to sound like you, even though it learns from you. As people read your information or you share it, you have to understand you're getting it from a digital environment and ecosystem that itself is still learning.
Bill says, truth is the casualty. Information is always changing. Too right, Bill. Right, so let's go on to the next question, which is one of the most important questions that the young should ask about. The young should ask about the technologies they use and create. Now, this is very interesting because obviously you were just talking, William, about questions and asking the right questions. Right. I will pass this one to Poppy, and then we'll bring her onto this. And then Bill, I would be interested to hear your side of things as well when it comes to emotional intelligence. So, Poppy, over to you.
All right, thank you so much for the question. I think it's important that they ask about the limitations of AI and what to use, or rather just the internet, just as a whole. As the previous speaker has reiterated, that it's important that when children access these internets or has AI, they know that it's a tool to enhance their creativity. It is not meant to replace it. So it's important that they ask questions related to how can I still be authentic but still use certain tools in order to augment my work, in order to augment my creativity, or in order to augment my idea. So I think the most important question would be, how can AI make me better, or how can the use of information from the internet make me better in my field or in my work and my school and etc. Because also as a marketer, we're also experiencing the same kind of shift or the same kind of trends where we're noticing that people, especially in our field and creativity, people are now leaning towards to using AI tools to advertise, but then they lose that emotional connection that brands have built with consumers. So the same thing with the youth as well, that they need to understand how AI or the use of the internet can help augment their skills as opposed to replacing them.
That's very insightful. And Bill, do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot that you said there that was really valuable. What I try to promote is, how do we get youth to identify what their top 10 or 20 needs are? And then how do those needs move in relationship to AI? And I'm not as hung up on the plagiarism and the thing, because how can I best say this? There are things written in a book that is not true. And just because you look it up and it's in a book, it still could be full of crap. So AI has its own set of problems there about that. So if I'm gonna focus on a set of values, and I just put those in the chat, if I'm gonna see, I want them to pursue truth, and then I want to pursue trust. Then how is this piece of information going to connect to me and connect to others? How is this going to collaborate or cooperate? How do I bring care into the equation? How do I bring contribution and service into the equation? If I get a youth thinking about those terms and help them define those terms from the internal, their own internal integrity gets better. And then they'll step into it because their emotions are going to follow. They're going to feel inspired and energized and delighted and confident in things. They won't feel doubtful, skeptical, hesitant, anxious, nervous, because they're pursuing a need which causes a feeling, which actually ties in, Poppy, to what you're saying, is that they gotta fight with their internal voice, but they don't have enough vocabulary for their internal voice. So building a needs-based vocabulary can help them give really strong pushback to say, I'm not sure if AI is fully correct on this. Let me ask another AI or another thing, and let me ask the question in a new way so I can have a new truth. And actually, I can actually say to AI, can you cite the resources for what you just said to me? And then it arm twist AI to tell the truth or bring out what the resource is, and AI's got to cough it up.
Yeah.
And then what happens is then you got the footnote and you got the validation piece, because it's kind of getting good at that now. I can say, hey, can you give me some reference? And all of a sudden AI could go sideways. Or I learned a new term is there's this AI phantoming, where AI goes off in its own way and starts creating a story out there. And then you got to reel it back in because I don't want to say it, but it goes nuts a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still getting better. But anyways, that's another rabbit hole. But does that make sense though? Is if I build value in the narrative, that actually can help the youth to modulate their emotions and become more emotionally resilient, which is a term I keep trying to promote. Emotional sobriety, emotional resilience, emotional congruency. If I can get those three things in society.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's where that's what something. So I hope that's helpful.
No, it was very insightful. And I mean, trust and truth and connection. And the other ones you also said was cooperation, collaboration, care, contribution.
Try asking anybody under 18 what those words mean, and wait for your jaw to drop. They have no idea what they look like for them in a given moment. They don't know.
Well, one thing I will say is one thing we do advocate of obviously Just Verify and even GatherVerse. One of our standards is trust and also humanity, and many other ones. But trust is really kind of fundamental to everything. And of course, how do you build trust? Well, you build that through rapport, connection, truth, authenticity, all those different aspects. So yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. If I ask the youth today, those ones that you're saying about, right, or even the ones that even I'm saying about, right, then it'd be interesting to see what the response is, and do they know the definition of it, or do they not? So, but yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Bill. And I want to welcome Santosh to the stage. So welcome, Santosh. Great to have you with us. Just quickly introduce yourself, and we'll pass the next question over to you as well. So if you just want to mute your microphone and just quickly introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. And it's nice to meet you all. And I have approx 15 plus years of extensive experience into AI. Like we were discussing for AI, how the youth can be uh, their opinion and suggestions will be AI. So I am working for AI and having approx more than 15 years of experience into research, innovations, and various aspects we can say into AI, mostly like generative AI or healthcare and insurance and various enterprises level as well. And
Well, it's great to have you with us, Santosh. And do you want to answer the question quickly, which is, what overlooked skills do you believe will define the future? So it'd be interesting to hear from your technical perspective what your thoughts are on that.
well, so we'll talk about for the futures for the youth, like how they can elaborate from the AI and how it can be benefit for the future. So it's not like you are just simply jumping to AI. First, you have to see from the youth like how they are imagining and how they are expecting, not like you are just simply developing the app.
Sorry to jump in, Santosh, but you're lagging very slowly. You're kind of jumping all over the place on your camera. So you might want to remove the background. I think that will help, or you can switch over to your phone, and that could solve the issue too. So let's bring this over to Eternity. Eternity, what are your thoughts on this? What are overlooked skills? Do you believe that will define the future?
Yeah, I believe some of the skills would be critical thinking, as people are relying a lot more, especially youth, having people who know how to think on their own and be independent, which we were kind of talking about earlier, will become very important. I also believe creativity is something we are starting to lose. More people turn to AI for marketing help, they turn to it for just in general, for everything. So creativity.
I think you're having technical
then,
difficulties as well. Your microphone's kind of jumping out. It's kind of jumping about. I don't know. We're all kind of hearing a little bit of feedback, like jumping about. Wait, if you want to just quickly like unplug it and plug it back in, I think that might sort it. All right, Poppy, over to you. What overlooked skills do you believe will define the future?
All right, definitely critical thinking and being analytic. I think those are key skills that will definitely define future user thinking, especially when it comes to creativity. Like I said, I am in the marketing field. So those are going to come very, very handy in terms of also differentiating yourself from the rest. So definitely being more critical in how you approach problems and how you come up with solutions and etc., especially in the AI field, in terms of how it's going to actually help you come up with those solutions for different problems. And so, yeah, being analytical and critical are going to be very, very key in the tomorrow jobs.
I 100% agree with you on that. And Eternity, do you want to try again, see if we've fixed the audio issue?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it better?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. I actually was agreeing with Poppy. I was saying critical thinking is something I definitely think we will be needing as people are relying more on AI, but also creativity, people who are able to come up with new and innovative things. Because a lot of people are putting their creative energy towards AI and how AI can enhance what we're doing, but there's so many other realms where we need creativity outside of technology. And also I would say trades. I feel like a lot of people are trying to get into tech. They're trying to get into that remote work and all of those things, but we still need people who are working on our streets. We need construction. We need everything for life to be able to continue outside of just focusing on the technological side of advancement.
Interesting. I mean, I think maybe one of the overlooked skills potentially could be, I mean, even potentially like the lack of engineers, right? In terms of, when it comes to AI and robotics and stuff like that. I know you're talking about outside of technology, and we do need, all the main jobs, manufacturing, etc. when it comes to that aspect, but also we do need the right people within these AI companies so that they can be built correctly and actually for the better of humanity as well. When it comes to, for example, like a chief ethic officer, for example, in companies having that inside of there so that they can make sure that human values are a part of the data that's been put into it and stuff like that. So I think that's a bit of like a side thing, but I completely agree with what you're saying, Eternity, and the same with yourself, Poppy. But that's just kind of like something that I would just add to what you both have said. So thank you both for sharing that. And now we go on to the next question, which is, how can young people cultivate wisdom in the age of abundant knowledge? So Bill, we'll bring you onto this, and then William will bring you in next.
Oh my gosh. Well, abundant knowledge, gain experience, pursue knowledge, boil it down to wisdom into small bites to feed to others. Small bites. Mind reading is overrated. Yeah, that's small. Do you see that small bite? Right? Adjust perception and expand your perspective. Small piece of wisdom. Because you got, it's almost like to speak and think in TikTok. I mean, it's really funny that what I'm saying right now.
Okay.
Because any implement is a tool in the hands of a master. I mean,
that is true.
That is a snapshot. Now, you might not know but that's a quote that my dad gave me 40 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
wow.
He used to speak in TikToks, and that's I used to. He's a part of my storytelling when I speak. He used to speak in that way. He used to did it, and he used to walk around. He was like a quote guy, and then he would work throughout his day throughout his week through a quote. It was like TikTok before it was TikTok. But we're in that space right now. All of us on this line get stuck in explanation, theory, research, and it doesn't stick. Try to explain to somebody that believes that the world is flat that it's not. Just try. Their perception and their perspective is holding it to be true. It's holding it to be true.
Yeah.
And then you can see how people's brains are getting hijacked with all kinds of things that are outside the realm of truth. And you're going like, how are they fighting for this issue? Because it has some stickiness to it, because it's catchy. And if you repeat something catchy over and over again, people will go like, I guess that's really true. That and it's like, and it is so full of it. So we got to get used to adjusting, helping ourselves and others adjust our perception and expand our perspective in the new world of abundant knowledge, because we have so much knowledge we can't sort. It's very hard for us to sort, and our brains aren't really up to it, other than start speaking in these small ways. Think of it like the brain, like it's an elephant. There's an elephant with a rider sitting on top, and the rider on the top has got to get that elephant to move. Tell me, what does the rider have as he's sitting on top of here? A small stick. Tap, 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 tap. Don't explain crap to anybody. Don't give them the answer. Tap, 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 tap. Trying to get their brain to adjust in small movements.
Right.
And then it goes better. But yeah. Anyway, so I hope that's
no.
Thank
you. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. Is everyone has their own thoughts and expressions, and I love that. So I like the little analogy. That was kind of funny, actually. I'm not gonna lie. So William, over to yourself. How can young people cultivate wisdom in the age of abundant knowledge?
So I'm going to feed off of what Bill said, but I'm going to take it in another direction. I'm going to start with the older people around them, parents and grandparents, because it used to be a time where kids, new teens would be able to ask any question for the most part, and the parents and grandparents would take the time to answer it and then say, what do you think?
That is true.
For the past 15, 20 years, we've gone from that to, I don't know, you look it up on your phone, or I don't know, ask your friends. And when my children, my son Sean and my daughter Shay were beginning to talk and they would ask questions, I would tell them, you can ask me any question that you want, but I have to be able to ask you why. And that empowered them to be able to, whatever question came to their mind, they would ask me, Dad, why is the sky blue? Dad, why is water wet? Dad, so what, whatever. And I would answer their question, and they would formulate better questions as they got older. But when I got to the part that I would ask them, why do you want to know this? Then they formulated in their mind, well, I'm going to get this information from my dad. How am I going to use it? And when am I going to apply it to? So I would always ask them, why do you need to know? Or why do you want to know? But I would say it in a way where it's not demeaning or that I'm disciplining them, but for them to share their knowledge and their wisdom, I would call it. Why are they asking their questions, and what are they going to use that information for? And I think if we bring that back or apply that more and more to our young people today, they'll gain the wisdom that we have, but they'll also see that, oh, well, just because he's old, that doesn't mean he doesn't know anything. He's just older and he has wisdom, or she has wisdom that I don't. And this exposure to social media is unfortunate, is where, the older person gets, the dumber they get. It's perpetuated on these social media platforms, but also in television programs. So, you may have like Bill. Bill has all of this knowledge. Young people ought to be able to come up to him and say, I have a question to ask you. But not only will Bill answer the question, but he brings humor and inspiration to it because he's got that great smile and laugh. And it's like that draws the attention. Like, I can ask him any question and he'll give me a great answer. Poppy, for example, as well, her answers are intelligent, straightforward, dynamic. So when young women ask her a question, it's like, okay, I can rely on her to give me an answer that's beneficial to me. Eternity is the same thing. But we all bring a different perspective in answering those questions. We cultivate the wisdom in the youth because they feel comfortable in knowing I can ask them a question and I won't be demeaned, I won't be put down, I won't be fussed at or anything, but I gain that knowledge and I can carry it with me forever. And I do the same thing in my classroom, to a level, to a point, because, sometimes you get kids that just want to be obnoxious about it. But, yeah. And then that's a different level. But just, hey, you can ask me. That's what I'm here for. Always, we're either parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts, and they may not want to ask their friends because their friends more likely will give them the wrong answer. So have somebody that they can trust that will give them the truth and factual answers and even make it fun. That's important.
No, I completely agree with that. And you want kids to be curious, right? Like you want them to discover things and to say, there's no really like silly question, right? It's kind of like, so what about this? Or why is that blue? Or like I said, why is the sky blue? Right? For example, like you want kids to be curious because that's how they learn, right? And as we grow older, of course, myself, you, Bill, everyone here, we gain life experience, right? So when we gain life experience, we've all made mistakes, and the last thing we want is for the younger generation to go through that too, right?
Right.
So you want them to kind of keep asking those questions, be curious, be hungry, be learning and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or why is that? Or it doesn't matter what the question is or how.
Right.
You just want them to be inquisitive. So I completely agree with you with him 110%. And Bill, you're still putting messages in the thing, so I will just read them. Emotional safety to speak up and ask a question without the fear of judgment. Yeah, I completely agree. Unmute your microphone, Bill. Please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we got to cultivate the word curious for them to use it more often, to notice that we feel curious and we're able to workshop an idea safely without getting hammered, because that's what happens on social media. You workshop an idea, you have an opinion. It's like, oh, you're a terrible person. It's like, oh my gosh, because they're getting really a lot of pushback when they express themselves. Yeah. And everybody's backing off and kowtowing, and they don't need to do that. It's like, thank you for your opinion. But curiosity, the word curiosity, can mitigate a lot of noise in the environment. About a third of conflicts can get mitigated in that space of curiosity. Anyway, so it's a good piece.
Let's go on to the next question now, because I want to bring Poppy and Eternity into the next question to kind of switch things up a little bit, which is, what practices can help youth develop a more resilient and adaptable... Okay, let me read this properly. What practices can help youth develop a more resilient, adaptable, and creative mind? This is a very interesting question, and we've literally got 8 minutes left, so we'll fire over to you two. We'll do one round more questions. We'll get Bill and William in, and then we'll finish things up. And also, Santosh, welcome back. But let's get you both into this quickly, Eternity and Poppy. What are your thoughts on this question? So we head over to you first, Poppy.
All right, great. I think for me, it's important for them to have internal solitude, right? Stepping back in order to step forward. That's how you build resilience, right? You don't allow everything that's happening in your current circumstances to really determine how you act or how you react. So it's important to have that internal solitude, that pause, breathe, reassess, analyze, and then step forward again. So just that internal solitude, I think, is important, especially in building resilience in this world. Yeah, there's a lot of information like we've been just talking about in terms of people sharing so much data. So you can't allow every single noise to determine or be above your inner voice. So that internal solitude and reassessing before being reactive is quite important, especially in the world where there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot of consumption of information, and you don't know what's credible or what's not. So it's important to still have that inner voice that you can lean on, and therefore building that internal solitude is quite key, and especially being resilient in this kind of world. Thank you.
Absolutely, Poppy. Well said. I honestly can't even follow that up. So we'll hand that over to Eternity. What are your thoughts?
Writing is something I think is really important, whether it be a brain dump, just getting everything out your mind, or journaling so that you're able to go back and reflect on what you have done and where you are now. I think that's a big way to be able to be adaptable. In terms of creativity, trying new things. I think a lot of time they will only want to try the things their friends might want to try, or things they aren't aware of a lot of different things. So getting exposure, finding things that are quirky and trying them out, like doing things like chess. Chess is something I really love because it teaches me to think a couple of steps ahead. And then I will also say powering through when you sign up for something, when you finish it out and you actually do it, if you are committed to it, it helps with resilience. It helps with something in your head to just get a little bit stronger and be able to push through as you come across more issues or things that require you to get through it regardless of what's going on.
No, I completely agree. And Bill, why are you smiling for again? What is going on there? Like, it sounds like looks like you're having your own party or something.
It's like we're in our tribe here. We're in our tribe. We're just bantering stuff back and forth, and it's our tribe really working, to create the vision. And the hardest thing about this question about resilience and adaptability and creativity is creativity collapses if there's no stability. And so we got to really pay attention to our beliefs and our biases that take us out of stability. And I read a really wonderful book called On Freedom by Timothy Snyder. And he talks about the difference between freedom from language and freedom to language. So the current negative talk right now is freedom from immigrants instead of freedom to grow and provide opportunities for growth for people who want to be here. Freedom to is a better narrative than freedom from.
Yeah.
And it's really important. We've got to create a stability language that creativity can rest itself on. And that's something that can create a really strong resilience inside a young person.
I will add my own part to this, and then we'll jump on to the next question because we've got like 4 minutes. So I'll keep it very short and brief, which is when it comes to creativity, I like also when you do like the whole think, when you do brainstorming, right? Brainstorming, just being completely creative, just putting your thoughts out there, just putting them on paper. So what practices can help youth develop a more resilient, adaptable, and creative mind? Potentially, I think one of the ways is brainstorming, right? Just putting your thoughts onto paper or putting your creativity onto the computer or whatever kind of tool you want to use, and then just putting it out there and then seeing what creative aspects that you do or what you don't want to do, right? One creative idea could be completely ridiculous, and another idea would be like, actually, that makes sense. That's that's kind of cool. So, anyway, let's go on to the last question, which is, in what ways can the youth maintain the connection to humanity while engaging deeply with a technology-focused environment? So, William, I want to bring you onto this, and then we'll have to round things out.
Well, briefly, one of the best things is to come up with a problem that youth can use to solve with technology, and put them in groups that they can work together. So you give them the parameters of what type of technology they can use or type of technology they have access to, and you give them a problem, a social issue or economic issue that's going on, and ask them to solve it. So, for example, maybe like climate control or climate evaluation or how to address climate change. How can technology help them address these issues of climate change? Here in Florida, in June, from June to December is our hurricane season. So a lot of people are now really getting nervous with the changes and getting closer to June and how, you know, hurricanes might pop up and come across the pond or the Atlantic in the United States. Well, in past years, they've deviated their courses, but how can our youth here use tech to track, to monitor, to help people ahead of time before a hurricane actually hits? So that's one of the things some teachers are doing here in Duval County. So using those tech to address some of those issues.
I really think that's fundamentally important, and I think that is, it has to be, you know, used correctly, and that's one of the correct ways in being able to use technology correctly. So, on that note, we're going to have to round things up. So thank you so much to every single one of our panelists here, Poppy, William, Bill, Eternity. Thank you to all four of you. It's a shame we couldn't get Santosh on because he's having issues with his camera and everything, but it's been fantastic conversation with the four of you. And that is it for this roundtable discussion. And up next, we're going to be having myself and Paula, where we're going to be doing an amazing fireside chat. So that'll be coming up next as well. And make sure you follow every single person on this panel right here, down below, all of them on LinkedIn, and check them out, give them a follow, go and have a conversation with them and engage. That is it from me. Thank you very much, panelists. I will see you very shortly. Goodbye.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to Youth Summit 2025. Well, day 3 on day 2025. And we have the amazing Paula with us. Welcome, Paula. Great to have you with us. And thank you for joining us once again. You are an OG when it comes to the GatherVerse space. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Russell. And I'm happy to be here today to talk about some of my favorite things.
Amazing. And I've just been told to turn down my microphone, so hopefully that's a lot better now. Yeah, we've got a lot to discuss. So in this fireside chat, we're going to be discussing from today to tomorrow a discussion on AI and youth direction. So I'm very excited to talk about this. So I'm going to start with my first question, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this, Paula, which is, what do you believe young people really need from technology right now?
So that's a great question. And if we look at where today's young people are right now with their use of technology, they are heavy users, but light thinkers and passive users. So what youth need right now from technology are tools that empower them to be creators, storytellers, problem solvers, change makers. They need access to technologies that will help them to support their well-being, their creativity, their confidence, their sense of agency, and whether that's through the generative AI tools, through immersive technologies, the intent is that we need technologies that foster real world connections and a sense of belonging, and also care. And this one is really important to me because this notion of care is learning how to care for oneself, how to care for other people, how to care for the planet, and how to care for technologies.
That's
so
very
in my role,
interesting.
yeah.
So please continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, as an educator and as a designer and as a researcher, it's something that is really important to me, is that we have, you know, these tools that empower the youth, but then at the same time, we need them to be technology skeptics. We need to teach them to ask better questions about technology so that they are critical thinkers and they're not just pushed to use these tools to generate more information faster.
No, I mean, that's something we definitely spoke about in the last roundtable discussion. You know, was talking about questions and, you know, asking better questions so that, you know, you can learn more about AI, or you can even ask AI better questions of finding the truth of the original source of something that was, you know, like, for example, if it gives you like a certain stat, well, then can you give me the actual place in which you got that from? And I will ask you this, and this is kind of like a bit of a side question, but in one of our previous days, I think it was like day 2 or day 1, in one of the roundtable discussions, one of the ladies on the panel, she was saying about hope, right? Hopeful for a better future, hopeful for AI. Do you think that could also be alongside care? So hope in everything in those sort of aspects?
Yeah, and we need to spread more stories about hope, and we need to empower young people that they are our hope. They are the visionaries, they are the innovators who will be designing and developing and implementing the technologies that shape our lives in the future. And we have many good reasons to hope. We have many good reasons to be empowered also by youth and their innovation and their insights and their notion of inclusiveness and their sense of care. But it needs to be part of our education systems. We need to have more of these stories in the news. And hope is, I would say, that very important as well as care.
Absolutely. I think they're fundamental to the foundation. And another one I will bring up is trust, but I won't get into that because that's what I do on my side at Just Verify. We focus on the trust side of things. So, but let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about AI. Should AI understand the emotional nuance of a young person finding their way in the world, or in this new AI age world? Like, do you think the AI should understand that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as the saying goes, today's AI is the worst AI you'll ever use. And if we just pause there to think about what you're asking in your question and think about what is AI, and the recent advancements in AI that the computational systems broadly labeled as AI, including generative AI, agentic AI, the large language models, machine learning, they're all driven primarily by corporate and commercial interests. And so this seeds into your question because at present, we have a values alignment problem in that our AI systems, they have not been developed with intent to align with our human values, ethical considerations, societal well-being. So when you ask about, like right now, if AI should understand the emotional nuances of a young person, then my answer is that we have to pay close attention to the opportunities and the risks, because there are both. There's a lot of concern right now on surveillance, misinterpretation of data, also over-reliance on algorithms for generating feedback. And so when I think about your question, it's really clear to me, like, we need to be designing AI systems that are aligned with our human values, norms, and intentions. And then how also can these AI systems understand the complexity of youth experiences and reflect hope, like we talked about, reflect care, reflect consent. That's a big part of this, and cultural sensitivity. And in thinking also about your question, I would say, no, AI should never control or dictate a young person's journey. And that I do see a lot of opportunities, but like there's risks right now, just because our AI systems have been so heavily developed with commercial and corporate interests.
Sure. No, I completely agree, and it's very daunting. Like if that did happen, right? It would be crazy. It's crazy to even think about, right? And when it comes to let's switch gears again, and let's talk about kind of the educational sector. Where do ethics and empathy fit into technology education for the next generation? Like, where do you think these sit within or fit within to the technology education sector?
I would say that ethics and empathy, they have to be the foundation. I wouldn't say that they are the foundation, but they should be the foundation, because we can't teach youth to code, to use AI tools, without teaching them how to question these systems that they're using. And this is, when you're talking before about trust, I was really curious there what you meant about that, because, we need trust, but then we need to teach young people to be critical thinkers and to be skeptics. And therein is like this juxtaposition that we need both, because we have to think about what are the values embedded in the technologies we use. And like I said, right now, we do have a values alignment problem. We have to think about who benefits, who's left out. How do we use technology to benefit all of humanity rather than the privileged few? Like, these are, deep questions. So when you ask about ethics and empathy, I do think it is central to digital literacy. And I think that youth need to learn that this is part of their responsibility as citizens, and then as, in the roles that they will have in the workplace, that the ethics and empathy are, we need to be thinking about diverse communities and really thinking about who's privileged and who's left out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we do that, right? I think it's important that we get the youth involved when it comes to ethics and that and the standpoint. But I mean, also as new technologies coming out too, right? Let's talk about, for example, the AR glasses and the the VR glasses that are coming out, in terms of, well, the glasses like what you're wearing now, for example. People will be walking around with them, with vision inside of them, etc. So when we're talking about new technology as well, and I will finish up on this question because we're running out of time. When we're looking at even like new technology coming out, like your glasses, for example, and obviously you're not wearing them right now, just FYI. But how can the youth do that to make sure that it is that ethics is within that, or like they can take responsibility for the next generation, so to speak?
That's a great question. And when I think about your question, so not just about the glasses, but like today's youth, they're the visionaries who are going to develop our neural implants and our brain machine interfaces that are going to give us superhuman capabilities in terms of cognitive enhancements, in terms of physical capabilities. So therein you ask a very powerful question, is that how do we empower our young people today so they see that this comes with great responsibility and that we need to always be mindful of leading with integrity, with considering human dignity, how we can be accountable, sustainable, inclusive, transparent. And so like these values, we need to be embedding these values in our young people, because with the glasses and the neural implants and all the technologies that are in development and coming, we need good humans who are we need good humans, and we need diverse representation. So that's why we need, like, it's not just for the sake of a token inclusion. It's like we really do need to have the imagination, and we need to have like just more empathic leadership, more cultural insights in all of these future devices and systems, that they can reflect our collective human values. And again, this is, to me, one of the concerns I have at the moment is that values alignment problem.
Yeah, and I will just add to the pod as well. When I was mentioning about trust before, I mean, we want our youth to be able to, trust AI and trust what it says, and also be able to, verify if what it's saying is true, or if it's, hallucinating, or if it's, not being genuine, basically, or authentic. So, this is something that's mostly crucial and important, and also, something that, I'm working on at Just Verify, in building that, trust layer, so to speak. So I think it's very important that, trust is also within sort of the values that you're talking about.
Yeah, especially because we live in a time of disinformation, misinformation, and it is more challenging to discern what is real from what is fake. And in immersive worlds, in AI generated content, like, it's not often primary source material. So unless if you have the references and you can check it out, then that trust is concerning, because it is so easy to be caught up in social media filter bubbles and being blinded by information that's not true, that's not trustworthy, but it is very convincing and very influential.
And on that note, I'm afraid we're going to have to finish on that. And Paula, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on this amazing fireside chat. It's been a pleasure having you. And please, everyone, do go and follow Paula on LinkedIn. Go and check her out. And Paula, what you said has been amazing today. So thank you for sharing that with us. And up next, sorry, do you want to say goodbye quickly?
Just want to say goodbye, and thanks for your questions. I really appreciate their time today.
And on that note, up next, we do have a fireside chat with William, and we're going to be discussing the next the next generation of emerging technologies roundtable. So that'll be coming up next. So thank you very much, Paula, for joining us. And on that note, I will see you very shortly. Goodbye.
Testing. Hello. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad you're here. This is going to be a power-packed, gather well panel discussion with some amazing young people we have here. And I'm allowed to say young people because I'm probably older than everybody here, but that's besides the point. But welcome Good day, good afternoon, good evening. We're going to start off with having each of you young people introduce yourself. And Amara, did I pronounce your name correctly? Okay, so we're going to start with you and just introduce yourself and tell us your name so that those that are watching know how to properly pronounce your name, and a little bit about yourself briefly and what you do. So Amara, we're
Okay.
going to start with you.
Hello, William, and hello, everyone. Glad to meet you all here at this Youth Summit. And well, this is Amar Aftab from Pakistan, and currently I'm running a global AI community, and we are existing in 26 different countries. And I would love you all to be a part of that community as well, so we all can grow together all around the globe. And it's really nice to see you, William, again in this session once again. So currently what we are doing, like I'm working as a AI influencer. I'm hosting Pakistan's first AI specific podcast where we have a conversation with the people who have the AI expertise. So everything is all around the AI. So that's all for now. And let's move on to another guest. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for that information. We appreciate it. So let's go to Key. How are you, Key? Great.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here on one of my favorite summits, and definitely because we're speaking about the youth. But my name is Key, and I am the CEO of Black Girl AI, where we help Black girls ages 8 to 18 years old learn all about artificial intelligence and encouraging them and making sure that they be our next leaders.
Very good. Thank you. Great work that y'all are
You're
doing.
welcome. Thank you.
Ibrahim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yeah, great. Thank you, guys. My name is Arma Ibrahim. I'm currently based in Abuja, Nigeria. I'm the programs director at Immersive Tech Africa. So we're a nonprofit organization that is trying to democratize access to both AI and XR technologies across Africa. And we do that through education, training, and also research. And I'm glad to share our journey with you all on this call.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing. Benjamin, how are you?
Hey there. I'm really good. Good to meet you, William, and the rest of my panelists. My name is David Benjamin, and I am the founder of the Meta Layer Initiative. This is a open source, co-creative project that seeks to define the desirable properties of a meta layer. And a meta layer is essentially a layer above the entire web. And we're seeing this as the new, not platform, but really an environment that will take advantage of the fact that everything above the web is decentralized public space. And we see this as a way to really address many of the shortcomings of today's web. For example, the inability to understand what's true or not, the scams, the security issues, etc. And we see this as a really strong opportunity for young people to get involved with the design of protocols and actually create a new layer on the web that allows them to do the things they want to do.
Awesome. So our last panelist, and welcome, sir. And I was practicing how to properly say your name. So is it Hi How? Did I pronounce it correctly? Oh, great.
That is perfect. I like to help people out. It's like, hi, how are you? Hi How.
Okay.
And so, hi, how are you, everyone? My name is Hai Hao. I am the founder and lead AI researcher at my startup, Trinity Education. My background is in math and science. I have degrees in material science and math. And I was also a PhD researcher at MIT in machine learning, using that for designing and making new materials. And then during COVID, I pivoted somewhat my focus, my career. I was always very passionate about education. And so I decided to go for a education degree. And now I'm working to bring all of those facets of my background, the math, the science, and the education through this through this startup, which very exciting. We just got some funding for this week. So we're looking to make things happen.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So I'm going to ask all of you to put on an extra energy of ingenuity, innovation, and imagination, because we're addressing the youth in this youth summit. And understanding that preparing the next generation for emerging technologies, we have a list of questions that we wanted to ask you and get your insight. So first of all, I would like to ask you individually, what are your ideas or what are your perceptions of preparing the next generation for emerging technologies? There's a lot of technologies that are out there. Just briefly to start off, what are your perceptions and ideas of preparing the next generation for that? So Amara, let's start with you. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the question. For me, I think we just have to start basically. And one of the things we are doing over here in Africa is we are starting where we are, right? So we're not imagining maybe 50, 100 years, 50, 100 years coming. We are starting where we are, leveraging on the infrastructures that are available for us. And one thing we are seeing now is the government has seen the huge impact and interest of getting started with AI and even emerging tech. For example, the government in Abuja, the capital city, recently launched a digital resource center to train teachers on some emerging tech skills that they can now use to support students in the classroom. So I feel we have already started, right? But we are starting where we are and seeing how we can catch up with the rest of the world. But I'm excited to see that progress has been made and can't wait to see what happens in the coming years.
All right, thank you for sharing. Amara, how about yourself? What are your ideas and perspectives on preparing the next generation for emerging tech?
Okay, for well, my point of view maybe have a differ from others as well, because I'm from a millennial generation, and I'm very much into with the youth nowadays and working with them on a lot of things. So the main point is that it's not so easy to change their mindset with respect to the current situation, right? And gradually they are trying to adopt each and everything. When we talk about the developing countries, so developing countries are not very much is in a situation to accept the things right now, but they are growing, because the old school of thought was like, okay, in our country, if AI is here, so in our country maybe AI will hit after 10 years or 20 years. So they are not looking things in a practical way. But the reality is, whether it's a developed country or a developing country, AI is already there. The chat GPT is there, all the different AI tools are there. So the youth should adopt and accept each and everything gradually. And that's the main point. The acceptance is the first point, which everyone has to do that. And then once our youth will accept things, definitely they have a different mindset, because the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha is already here. So such kind of generation have a very creative mindset. Even if right now, if we are like above like 20 plus and like 30 plus, so we cannot have the ability to think in that perspective. But now currently we have like very common issues, very common challenges in every country. The number one is a mental health issue, number two is the climate change. So in today's life, in today's generation, the generation which we are talking about, the youth, they are very much focused towards their mental health. So if they accept the AI today, or if they accept about the current situation, what is happening globally, then they will be able to do what they exactly want to do and what is the need of the time. So mental health is there. If they integrate with respect to the AI, when I talk about the AI, so if the current generation will integrate the AI into the mental health, so there are so many possibilities to solve the biggest challenges all around the globe.
Thank you very much for sharing that, because we are international here. We want to see your perspectives related to where you are globally, because we do share some of the same issues, some of the same challenges, but also we share some of the successes with our youth that we work with. So Key, could you briefly give us your perspective on preparing the next generation for emerging technologies?
Absolutely, sure. One main thing that I like about the youth today, their young minds, they're unfiltered. So they bring us a lot of unfiltered creativity. They're very curious, and they have a lot of courage too. So I like their willingness to imagine beyond their boundaries. I like how they really push themselves. I'm sorry, and they not hindered by traditions like traditional things and legacies. They some dreamers, so they're a lot about the what ifs and the why nots. That's what I like about it. So and they don't mind unlocking innovative ways to approach challenges. They're not afraid. They will go in there head first. They're not afraid at all. So when we give them access and voice, they don't just adapt to technology, they revolutionize it. And that's what I like about our youth today.
All right. And that's one of the words: revolutionize and evolve and adapt are very key and very important words that people
Absolutely
need to relate to tech. Hi, Hal. What are your perspectives as well for emerging technologies with youth?
Yeah, first, I agree with a lot of what's been said. So, I was thinking of like what additional perspectives. I think I might be probably the youngest one on the panel. I'm just borderline, almost Gen Z. But I think one thing about the younger generations, right? Those my age and younger, I get the sense that we don't take things for granted in the world. What I mean by that is we grew up in a world that's kind of full of volatility. I'm old enough to remember like the financial crisis, right? And kind of the world's not been the same since. And we grew up our whole lives, essentially from as long as we can remember, about the climate crisis, right? And so we don't kind of, despite the stereotypes, we don't take things for granted. Like we want to actively work to create a better world. And I believe that's a really powerful mentality to have going forward. I think, for example, you could even say it's a kind of cynical mindset in that, we don't just take for granted, oh, like technology is a good thing. Like we see how technology can bring harm just as much as it can do good. And so with that awareness, right, we can be more conscious of like how we use technology, and how we work with emerging technologies.
Very good. Well, we want to welcome Paul. Paul, we are glad you're here, able to join us. So what we're talking about is what your perspective is about emerging technologies. So before you start, we're going to go to Benjamin, and he's going to answer the question. And when we come to you, please tell us a little bit about yourself, how to pronounce your name, and what you're doing with tech and where you are. So Benjamin, if you would go, please.
Yeah. The perspective that I want to bring is that the youth are going to be the ones who are holding our humanity, and that they need to really focus, I think, on knowing themselves. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more important than that. And I would say that it's one of the things that they can actively should do is think about what they need and begin preparing for that. Secondly, I would say it's really important that as we're going through this time of great transition and probably a lot of disruption, that it's going to be really important for people to find a way to have happiness no matter what their circumstances are, and be grateful for what they have, because I don't really know what's coming up, and I think that most of us really don't have a full sense of it. But it's going to be important just to remain these groundings and to keep coming back to self, and just knowing who they are as a person, what they stand for, and just keep coming back to that center over and over through this time. And then the one gem I want to just pass on is, I think, a way that can be really helpful for this, and as an inner compass, is to live the story that they want to tell a year from now, or 2 years from now, or whenever. What do they want to say about this time? And how they responded to the opportunity.
Thank you. I think you're breaking up. But Paul, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself and briefly tell us a little bit about what you're doing as well.
Right. It's great to be here
Good
and
to see you.
See everybody. Thank you to see my good old friend William. I'm calling you from just outside Nairobi in Kiambu, Kenya, and I'm the founder of Africa VR Campus and Center, also known as the first African in the metaverse from way back in 2016. It's been amazing showing the youth the emerging tech. I call it next gen tech. And probably one of the best things that we are going to live in this world when we do get older is we'll have proteges who will, if we put ethics in the use of technology, we are going to have proteges who will implement what we teach them in their future utility of this technology. And what we just need to do is to implement a lot of ethics. Let's put away what the stereotypes has been there in the world, and let's just showcase this to the youth. At Africa VR Campus and Center, and William, I know you know this because you are one of their mentors. That is exactly what we do first, and that is what people do here at the GatherVerse. Humanity first tech, things that will bring people together so that we can grow together. When the tides lift all the boats, that's where we need all to be.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. And this next question is, how can young innovators use AI, AR, and other emerging technologies to create solutions that truly serve humanity? So, Key, if you don't mind, we'll start with you with the organization that you work with and a diverse group of young
Absolutely.
people with.
You must have read my mind. I was ready to answer this question because first and foremost, I think by rooting their innovations in empathy, purpose, and equity is definitely how they can get it done, because we all know that AI and AR are very, very powerful, but they must be designed with a heart and cultural awareness. So young innovators, they should always ask themselves, whose story isn't being told? Is it your story, my story? Whose story isn't being told? Right. So, or either whose need hasn't been met is another thing that young innovators can ask themselves. And so when they code with compassion and design with inclusion in mind, they don't just create products, they create movements.
Right. Very good. They create all right. I love that saying. I love it. Amara, what are your perspectives on the innovation of technology using AI and AR?
I was also love to respond this question actually, because as I said that I am very connected with such kind of things. So the point is that as just Key just said about the empathy, so our young blood are very empathetic and very sensitive, and they have that creative mindset, so they definitely know how to utilize the AI, AR, virtual reality, so they can solve a lot of challenges and serve the humanity accordingly. For example, let's move on with one example. The metaverse is there, right? So if I just had I just watched one advertisement a couple of days ago, and there was a marriage of a couple, and one gift has been presented to that couple. There is a screen, and the bride's father died 5 years back, but on the screen, the bride's father, the AI version of her father, was there actually, right? So that kind of creative youngsters, they created that kind of gift to them to give the sense of empathy, kindness, sensitivity, and the emotional feelings to connect them actually. And the father was there, and he was saying, oh my daughter, stay blessed, stay happy, and have a good life ahead. So that is one example of a creativity. So I believe our youth have that kind of mindset where they can easily connect the technology and serve the humanity.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the different perspectives that you have. And we're going to go to our, since he mentioned it, our youngest member here. Hi, what do you think in your age group and maybe younger about the use of AI and AR and the technologies that are coming up and applying them?
I think to build off what I was saying and partly what I was saying, right? Like I get the sense that youth are very cautious in their use, or even skeptical, you could say, because of things like social media and all the mental health effects that's caused, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because if we're simply, because it's a shiny, flashy new technology, we're all just rushing to adopt it, right? That's a very, then things like, what Key was saying earlier, right? Like the inclusion and the empathy, and like that gets left by the wayside. And I think we're already seeing that with the way that AI is being adopted, and the way that these companies and even nations are pushing forward with AI. Everyone talks about the AI race now, and in that kind of AI race, right? Whether it's between companies or between countries, the ethics and the humanity gets left behind. Literally, these big companies like Google, a few years back, they fired the founder of their AI ethics team. Her name is Margaret Mitchell. And I get the sense that the youth are much more just skeptical of the adults in power right now, right? And kind of hoping for a more inclusive and humane future.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. So, in our next question, and this relates, Ibrahim, I want your responses, and then Benjamin, because it relates to jobs in the future. It's like, how do we prepare young people for jobs that don't even exist yet? And there's a blending of these questions, because I love the humanity that we have here related to the last question, and the humanity that's always imposed in or brought into the conversation and discussion with GatherVerse. That's one of the main things that attracted me to this community. But from that humanity to the future jobs, Ibrahim, what do you think about what's coming up and what's happening? How do we prepare the youth for them?
I think it's a very big question, and what I would say is we should try as much as possible to find where these youths are, where they are most actively, and try to bring this tech to them, right? So for us here in Africa, we have a very big race to catch up with what's going on across the world. And I'm glad to see that a lot of initiatives are springing up to support talents, especially youths, to get onboarded with tech as fast as possible. A very big example I would love to share is the 3MTT project in Nigeria. So the goal of the project is to train 3 million talents within the next couple of years in emerging tech, right? So the goal is 3 million talents in XR, in AI, and blockchain, and the rest, right? So the goal is where are these youths are, and the training is not just in urban centers; it's way down to the rural centers, and we have partners that come on board to train these talents over a duration of time. So I feel for us, digital upskilling and basically literacy is important, and finding them where they are with the devices that they are available with would help them to catch up with the future of jobs.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to go to Benjamin. He's going to give us his answer and his perspective. And then we're going to allow Paul, because he works with a diverse group of young people as well. So Benjamin, what are your outlooks and what do you say?
We need to give young people the training that they need. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We need to give them the training that they need so that they can become system thinkers. We need to augment their critical thinking and encourage them to be flexible in how they think about things and have humility, have empathy. A number of people have already talked about empathy as being a key thing. And I think these things, when you pull them together, you create a slightly different person. It's an extension of the person becomes someone who can adapt to changing situations and who can figure their way through uncertainty. And that's what's really needed, because there's going to be tremendous disruption in the future, and no one really knows what's going to happen. So we just need to be able to kind of ride the waves and always, as I was saying earlier, come back to our center, keep coming back to our center and knowing who we are, what we need, and really appreciating this journey that we're all collectively going to be on.
And as you talk about that journey, Paul's group that he mentors, they're experiencing some wonderful things as well in their journey with technology. So Paul, share your perspectives on preparing them for their future jobs.
It's wonderful that you're asking me this question, because just yesterday we took our students to the bank, and they were opening their first bank account and depositing their first loot from the metaverse. When we started the XR initiatives, we just thought that we are teaching them to meet William from Florida. We didn't know that it's gonna start coming down to them earning in the metaverse. And this took us by surprise, because all of a sudden now we have got financial management in our hands. These are young girls. They have never even touched a dollar from the United States. And now we have to start teaching them about foreign currency exchange. You can have your own mobile wallet, and now the money is streaming in, and we have to move it now to the bank. And then we have to teach them that they have to pay their tax. Just a few months ago, they were protesting on the streets talking about high taxes, but they were not paying the tax. They were hearing that from their father, from their mother, who is heavily burdened by the tax. And then, because their father and mother cannot go to the streets, these are the young women who are now going to the street, tasking the government of the day to lower down the task. So yesterday, I'm telling them, now you have your Kenya Revenue Authority. Now you'll be paying tax. If I give you 1,000 shillings, 160 shillings will be going to the government. So I think the best thing we need to do is to teach them to be outgoing. Let nothing, bring down the walls of challenges that surround us on a global scale. And it doesn't just mean that the kids in America do not have challenges, because I've now talked with them. There are challenges all over the world. Children in China, children in South Africa, children in Kiambu, Kenya, they all have challenges. And the idea is teach them to be brave and outgoing. And if democracy won't work, well, we have the human rights that allows them to protest and to ask for their rights.
Good point. Because once they learn the value and understand the power that they have, but also their money is fluid, then they get a better understanding of how to approach those issues. Key, if briefly, you can respond as well, and Amara after Key, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yes, I just wanted to say one thing about preparing the youth. We teach them how to learn, not just what to learn. That's what I wanted to add.
All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I just want to say that I'm loving or listening all the different opinions from different people from different background, and my intake in this is almost similar to the key that previously we were telling our kids what to learn and which field they have to choose and the specific field. Now we have to tell them, please explore as much as you can. There is no restrictions. There shouldn't be any kind of restriction like you have to be a doctor. So now the doctor must learn about the AI, right? So anyone, the teacher, if there is a teacher also learn about AI. So engineer must know how to integrate the AI. So there is no restrictions now, and there shouldn't be any kind of restrictions now.
All right, thank you. All right, hi, Hal, briefly, please, so we can move on. I know you got.
Yeah, sorry. I just think this is a really big question that like so many teachers and parents it's on their minds, and kids too, right? Like how do I just want to say one thing. I think one thing that's become apparent for me, with the rise of AI is that it's forced us to reckon with these big questions, like what does it mean to be human? And I'm a STEM major through and through, right, from undergrad through to, but I feel like increasingly as I got older, like I began to appreciate the true importance of the humanities, right? Because after all, it's in the name. It's what makes us human. And learning about things like history and even philosophy, right? These are things that will become only more important. I think liberal arts gets kind of ridiculed, right? It's like, oh, the liberal arts major who can't get a job. But part of it, like we don't know what future jobs are going to be like, right? That's the premise of the question. And so having that kind of liberal arts education with a broad base allows you to be flexible. So
right.
that's what
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a lot to learn, a lot to take in, particularly for our youth when we want them to be responsible. So on to the next question. How can we integrate discussions on privacy, which is a big discussion going on now, security, and the digital ethics into everyday education? So as you answer that, if you can give us your perspective or idea of what you think education is as well, because we're getting into different areas. As a professional educator myself, I'm trying to grow out of the habit of saying education is still basically in the school, but education can be your surroundings and your environment as well. So I'm learning and going through that transition. So Benjamin, your answers to integrating discussions on privacy and security with digital ethics. What are your ideas?
I'm a huge fan of experiential learning or project-based learning. I believe that that would be an ideal forum for people to learn about privacy, security, and digital ethics. For example, if their teacher or facilitator was to give a homework or assignment to create something, create something from scratch that they're really interested in. I think that's the important thing, that it's something that they're fired up about anyway. And normally in some kind of school situation, education, they wouldn't be able to do this, but we're allowing them to work on something that they're excited about. And then as they start getting into their projects, just making sure that they understand the implications of all these different things. Because I'm assuming I'm saying an internet project, right? So in my mind, that's implicit that there would be privacy issues, there would be security issues, digital ethics, and they can use AI to help suss that out. But I think that through that experience of actually working on a project and addressing all those issues is where they'll really understand.
And this dynamic too is a lot of schools, unfortunately, are not really doing AI security. They're not doing ethics because of standards or objectives, and they're not really doing privacy. They may touch on it, but unfortunately, this is not a key area in a lot of schools, unfortunately, in educational institutions. So Ibrahim, from your perspective where you are, what are your responses to the question?
Great, thank you so much for the question. For me, I would say it's important we, just like you said, fusing into learning and education. And like I always make reference to, Africa has one of the largest population based online at the moment, right? For example, TikTok. Nigeria has close to 3 million youths on that platform, right? Actively sharing content and videos. And most of them still don't understand the basics of digital privacy and security. So I feel those platforms need to find an initiative whereby they can start orientating those youth on how to protect themselves online. Right, so I've seen cases whereby people are tracked, their locations, and being molested one way or the other, or their content that they share online are being repurposed for other vices that are quite bad. So it's important that we teach them early. For example, some schools here are already teaching kids as early as 11 to 15 on how to protect themselves online. Right, so most of them have mobile devices. They have access to laptops and PCs. Right, so privacy online is important. Teaching them early is a priority, and I believe in the coming years we'll have youth that are privacy literate and can actively protect themselves online.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Now, we're going to get one more perspective, and then we're going to move on to other. But I would like Paul to share the young ladies and in his organization, in his group, how do you prepare them or teach them about privacy and security? I've seen them do a lot of work online with Oculus through the computers. So I know there's a different perspectives between boys and girls and men and women when it comes to their digital privacy and ethics. So from his perspective with the young ladies that he works with, can you share that with us?
Oh yeah, and let's all agree that even as we talk about digital ethics, we start first of all by socio-moral ethics, because the same people they are meeting, online are the same people they are meeting in the market. They're the same people, they are meeting in their institutions. But, the thing here is, somebody said it in the comment, it's ethics, ethics, ethics. And if you can't teach ethics enough, we teach more ethics. Because when we go to the digital online and we have our digital classes in the metaverse, something is always happening. And I know, William, you know this because you yourself have been hosting many metaverse events. People come in and you don't know where they came from. They just come in and they may say anything, they may do anything, and it's not my fault. That's what I insist on. It's not your fault as the host of the event or as the presenter of the event. And then again, I even always tend to think that people have got so many problems out there. I mean, when I'm watching news, I also see road rages across the world, including the United States. Some guys will get in the car and the helicopter is chasing them for miles. It even becomes a TV show in itself. So all this is happening because the world is filled up with a lot of problem at the moment. There is global economic crisis. There is moral, fabric being torn apart. So the idea is to fill them with their own essence, to fill them with their own character, their personalities, so that no matter what is thrown to them, nothing can pull their walls down.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. So each of us deal with different communities differently in our perspective, where we are physically located, and even in our online environments, because my personality is shared through LinkedIn, and I don't use TikTok that much, but LinkedIn and YouTube and X and other platforms. So you see different sides of me. So it's great to see the diversity. So Key, can you share us in what ways can diverse communities globally have equal access? And this is one of the things, equal access to developing and using emerging technologies. And I know sometimes we struggle with the equal access part, but it is one of those key elements too that we all have to think about.
Yes, absolutely. First things first, access begins with intention. So when I say intention, I mean intentional investments, intentional in broadband, intentional in all the tech hubs, and most importantly, intentional in the teacher trainings and in culturally responsive curriculum.
Okay.
So it also means decolonizing tech spaces and making room for indigenous wisdom, ancestral intelligence, and underrepresented brilliance. So true access isn't just about devices, it's about belonging.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Amara, would you like to add something to that as well?
Yeah, why not? Because definitely I'm running a global AI community. So I am already connected with a lot of people globally. So, with respect to the equal access and the main point, what exactly, let me tell you what Pro AI Global is doing. We are providing the opportunity to all of the AI enthusiasts and AI experts to get in touch, to connect with each other. So initially, the main point is number one, we have to have the awareness of any kind of emerging technology. So in our sessions, in our monthly sessions, we provide different kind of awareness session on emerging technology. Number one. Number two, what we do, we give the opportunity to the people. Let's suppose if William have a company, so William can share what exactly the product he has, okay? And he also wants to get the access of those product or the tools. So in our community, what we can do, we collaborate with each and other products and the companies, and we provide the platform to get the discounts and so many other things. So each one of us will have the win-win situation. So main point is that the awareness, the connectivity, and then we are here to collaborate, and we are here to basically fill the gap, and we basically bridge the gap actually. So yeah, that's it, I think. And I would love to hear the other perspective as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to allow the gentlemen to add their perspectives from their background. So whichever would like to go first. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I just wanted to introduce a term that I came across in a book I was reading. you might have heard of the Matthews effect, right? It comes from the Bible. The story in the Bible where, you know, the man who starts with more ends up getting more than the man who starts with less. And one of professors at MIT, Justin Reich, he, in his book, Failure to Disrupt, Why Technology Alone kind of fails to disrupt education. I forgot the subtitle. But in that book, he coined the term EdTech Matthews effect, right? So when we're thinking about technology and, you know, especially in education, but just education more, technology more broadly, right? This idea that those who have more by default, if you will, right, will end up getting more, and it's sort of a positive feedback loop, right? And we see this very much with all sorts of technology, but in particular AI, right? And so I think we need to be conscious of that, right? It goes back to the point I said earlier, like technology on its own does not, you know, we tend to think of, you know, especially in this modern age, technology as this great thing that, you know, brings improvement to quality of life for everyone, but that's not inevitable. That actually, you know, technology by default, it could make people's lives worse as well, or better, and in particular it could be, you know, widen inequalities. So we need to be very conscious of that and to actively work against that effect.
Thank you for sharing. Ibrahim or Benjamin, did y'all have anything to add? Okay. All right. Well, hey, these perspectives are great. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and these are conversations that are happening within the community, equal access, the diverse use of technology. So all of those empower us to have these conversations outside of GatherVerse when we're in our communities or where we're in our places of employment, or even with our families. We're talking about the youth. So having conversations with them is very important because they do look up to us as leaders. So moving on, what dangers arise when young people adopt technology without understanding its long-term consequences? So I'll give you an example. Like when TikTok first came out, everybody jumped on it. You know, they were using it, you know, for personal use, for business. But the issue was the access to personal information that you had to provide in order to use the app. And that's still an ongoing conversation. But I think one of the things that have died down a lot was people see the benefits as opposed to, okay, I got to give you all my information in order to use this app, but still, you know, how can I still use it to benefit and not even worried about that? And I'm just going to ask anybody want to go first to address that.
Yeah,
You know,
I would love to.
Okay, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so actually, data is a new oil, right? So the main concern is all about data. What the young people are doing, they are just, you know, if let me give you one more very real example. There is a country, and the guy, he was feeling so depressed, so he started talking with a bot actually, and he's sharing about all of his feelings. I'm feeling lonely, and she ditched me, and etc., etc., and all. Then what happened? Well, what are you doing? What the youth are doing? The youth is storing their data. They are providing their personal data, right? So if you are definitely giving your personal data to anyone, so everyone has the common sense what can be the side effect of that. And for example, let's talk about a very recent case of ChatGPT about the Ghibli art. Everyone was providing their family pictures and their own pictures to create the Ghibli art. And what they are getting in at the back, they are definitely storing their own personal data. And there are so many other things. So there are so many consequences, but we have to think what and how we can stop that. What are the precautions? So the awareness is the first and the main part, which we all of us have to create to the youth. Actually, once we will provide the such kind of awareness that what are the side effects of that, then definitely at least we will be a capable, or we will be able actually to part our role in the society.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's very important information to know. Next, we'll have our young man right here.
Yeah.
Giving us
I want
wisdom.
to say, I want to speak on something that I would argue is even more dangerous than this loss of privacy or data in the rise of AI. And that is the gradual disempowerment of humans.
Right.
And what does that mean, right? Like there was a recent study put out by Microsoft in collaboration with CMU, Carnegie Mellon, and they looked at knowledge workers, right? So working, people working, and they found was that with increased AI use, and this is not particularly surprising, but with increased AI use, there was increased cognitive offloading is the term they use, right? So, in the same way that we offload sort of physical manual things, even skills, right, to machines and our gadgets, right? Like most of us can't navigate in the wild using the stars anymore, right? That's been a long lost skill. But now with AI, it's potential to take over or for us to lose more and more skills, right? As we offloaded these decision making even or to AI without thinking critically about like the consequences. That's something very scary because not to be kind of a sci-fi alarmist, but if this happens at the scale of let's say governmental decisions, right, or automating the economy, that could lead to one of those situations where humanity is disempowered, and we definitely don't want to go there.
Exactly. Good point. You can see it in the movies. Those are perfect examples. Those are great examples. Benjamin, your perspective?
Yeah, totally agree with Amara on data and Hi How on the cognitive offloading. And I also want to just say that accepting today's web is actually extremely dangerous because it doesn't allow for informed, conscious choice making at scale. And it's more like a prison than anything else. And I also want to just step back on the framing on this and just say that this isn't just a problem with youth. This is a problem with everyone. It's actually a problem with technology. It's called the integral accident. When you create something, you actually create the negative consequences at the same time. So you create a ship, you create the shipwreck, you create electricity, you create people getting electrocuted. So what it is that these new technologies will do, we're going to find out down the line. But hopefully young people will be better at addressing these things than our generation has been.
Okay. I would like to give Paul a chance to speak if we have a few minutes left. Because of his group, I think he has, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have about 10 students or 10 young people that you work with. And a lot of what he learns and gains, he teaches them as well because of their online activities in the metaverse and on the internet. So, Paul, can you share that?
Yeah, we have 15 permanent students, but the rest come and go. So when there are school holidays, the number can increase up to 30 or 40. But the real deal here in regards to the consequences of technology is, in a way, there is now the democracy of self-expression. And some of these expressions are adult people expressions, but they end up leaking down to the young generation. Right. And they take that expression, in the light that they were not, expected to take it and absorb it. And so I asked this question a few months ago in Nairobi: how many dancers can we have in a country, right? There was a time we went to the village and we were doing this social project, and this young girl who was about 10 years old approached me and he said, Teacher Paul, can you also get me a phone so that I can twerk on TikTok? And I told her, look here, dear, look on this road. Who built this road? The Chinese built this road. I want you to become an engineer so that you can also build this road. We cannot not all be dancers. And I'm not saying there is anything wrong with dancing, but the expression now becomes too much that we are now leaning away from things like academia, things like engineering, things like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. And when it comes to a point, there is so much of it, then I call it mental genocide. the expression that would have been expressed in engineering now gets lost. And if I, Wayaki, wants to express myself, the best way to do it is do it while dancing. That's when the masses will be able to look at me and like my videos. So here is the thing. The people who are posting on TikTok about engineering, I do get a following of about 50,000 people likes. That's okay. But some girl will do the dancing and there'll be 10 million likes on it. And now, which one is taking the masses the right way? So it is our idea then to instill the art of academia, in knowledge searching and knowledge hunger in our young ones, so that when all this is happening around them, that's what we do with our young girls, because when you're dealing with teenage girls, of course, there is always the risk of that going south. And so we must agree with them that which is the right way. Talk to them like they are adults already and ask which is the right way. Which is the right way to get you to Oprah Winfrey level, to the president of Liberia level, to the president of Tanzania level, who is a woman, by the way, to the astronauts who are flying in the Blue Origins the other day. Let's get talking and instill the old stories of you can do it. You don't have to take the easy way.
Exactly. Thank you. We seem to have run out of time, but before we go, I want to encourage each of you to follow each other on LinkedIn and other social platforms to continue these conversations. There is so much synergy here, and I believe I follow most of you on LinkedIn, but I'm gonna follow everybody to make sure that I stay connected with you, because I've learned so much, and I applaud each and every one of you and thank you and encourage you to keep doing the great works that you're doing. So thank you very much. God bless everyone.
This is a serious time, a powerful and rather extraordinary time of innovation. I was just reminded of this, and I hope you were as well, with listening to these series of expressions of the roundtable we just were afforded to have. Each technologist, a true expert in their own right, whom I've been observing for some time now. We've had Paula McDowell, a penultimate expert in education, who has a serious propensity for understanding where we are at and where we are headed in the throes of innovation of education at the intersection of emerging technologies. We arrived together with GatherVerse with this express intent to learn and understand, to listen, to observe, to appreciate. The preservation of human expression has never been more important today than now than ever. At a time where our words are being congregated, our presence are being congregated and facilitated with and by machines. We talk about the speech of a machine, concatenative or parametric synthesis. We talk about the vision and the sight of a machine, computer vision. We talk about neural networks. We talk about deep learning and research. We talk about inference and test time compute. We talk about a number of different things, from the perceptron to the egress of information. We talk about the extraordinary power of LLMs and foundational models and small model development. With large context windows, massive parameter scale, training, synthetic and real data, if you will, observational data, JEPA models, so forth and so on, diffusion models, creativity, visualizations, on things unlike anything we've ever seen before, present to our time, contemporary to our time. But I beseech you to appreciate and to have a firm and keen understanding that the most powerful database we ever have on this planet and will ever have is the one between the confines of your mind and inspired by your hearts. That your capabilities that you've been given since birth are quite capable and untapped. That there's latent potential even within, even as we speak now. That I would have you to consider that even as profound as these models that we integrate with AI, and they are becoming more capable, they can never supersede the human code, the thing that's been passed through the ages and dispensations of time itself. It can never sense the smell and the scent of the sea, the feel and the warmth of a hand. It cannot do that. I say this because we're heading into the frontier of the unknown, and what some of us call frontier intelligence. I say this because the innovations that we are aware of today on an amalgam level, the technological convergence, as these platforms continue to cross-pollinate together and centralize with human culture, but also artificial intelligent culture. On a morphous scale, we do not know what will be innovated sooner rather than later. We can expect to see new platforms and products and protocols and applications to arrive to our shores that are powered by these quite capable models. We'll see a startup revolution, a renaissance unlike anything we've ever seen before, with no blueprint to enjoy on how to go about this. And the capability for raising the kind of capital that you're going to need to power will be minimized. That over the course of a 24-hour day, you can wake up with an idea in your mind and have it in market before the setting sun. Education will be altogether different. Manufacturing, logistics, health sectors, science, exploration, all of it is changing dramatically, seemingly overnight. I can attest that here in Silicon Valley, I'm seeing technology here at ground zero on the likes that most people wouldn't believe. But I assure you it's so anyhow. And not just here in Silicon Valley, but across the world, transmetropolitan, transcontinental. There are incredible innovations that we will adopt and subscribe. But here's the important point, thematic and central to why we assembled today at this particular GatherVerse Youth Summit, Day 3, 2025, is that what we innovate today will be adopted by our youth tomorrow. And they will ask, my goodness gracious, what have you handed us? And at what point did we care within our hearts and our minds about human betterment? We assemble at GatherVerse freely to talk and have conversations about this, to understand what are you working on and what are you seeing where you're from, to help serve as a North Star, if you will, a guide stone to help us along our way. And I have the pleasure, along with our GatherVerse team and our global GatherVerse community, to sit and listen to you. And for that, and many reasons, and many more, we're thankful. We're thankful for the opportunity to be able to serve. We're thankful for our sponsors. We're thankful for all of you that take the time to come and listen, to express, to comment, and just to observe on GatherVerse.live and elsewhere. It means something. And it may not seem to this day much for some people, but I assure you, the power of the preservation of human expression and human centricity, it holds value. It holds meaning in the throes of business and work. We're all heading this way into the frontier, whether we like it or not. And I assure you, we cannot stop the hands of time. What will you do with the time that's given in innovation? Who will you inspire? Who will you teach and guide and mold and mentor? I was raised and taught to give back freely that which was given unto you. Who are we giving back to? And if not you, then who? We only have a little bit of time to do this. This is an appeal to every single technologist, leader, and human heart that's with us today. Share what you've heard about GatherVerse. Share this communities with others. And just know that in your pursuits, you are never alone. And I can surely say that our gather was well. We'll see you next week for day 4 and day 5 of GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025. Take care.
He's on a drug. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, I got one foot on the platform, the other foot on the trail. Going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know